welcome back in part 5 of Ford. Anyways, let's continue about Ford.
Ford Performance, formerly Ford Racing, is a high-performance division of the Ford Motor Company and the multinational name used for its motorsport and racing activity. History: 1896, Henry Ford reached a top speed of 20 miles per hour in his first car, quadricycle.
1901, Henry Ford defeated Alexander Winton, the most accomplished automobile builder/racer of the era, in a 10-lap race on the 1-mile oval at the Detroit Driving Club, Grosse Pointe, Michigan.
He overcame his rival's more powerful car in sweepstakes, a racing car of his own design. 1902, Ford 999, named after a famous New York Central train, driven by Barney Oldfield, master driver of the world and America's legendary Speed King. Defeated Alex Winton at Grosse Pointe in the 999 as a result of the publicity and financial backing of Alex J. Malcolmson. The Ford Motor Company was launched.
1903, Ford 999, driven by Oldfield, lapped the Indiana Fairgrounds dirt track at a record 60 miles per hour.
1904, Henry Ford, driving his rebuilt 999, sets the world 1-mile record on a frozen lake near Detroit.
1904, Frank Hewlett drove a Ford 20-horsepower racer to the 1 and 5-mile world track record for middleweight racers.
1907, Hewlett set the world 24-hour track endurance record, traveling 1,135 miles driving a Ford 6-cylinder Model K.
1909, a Ford Model T won the transcontinental New York to Seattle cross-country race, about 3,600 kilometers.
1932, Ford introduced its V8 flathead engine, bringing V8 power into mass production with a slogan, "Everyman's power for the road and everyman's power for racing."
1932, two car mechanics win the Swedish Winter Grand Prix driving a Ford Special.
1936, Imo Firestone and Peter G. Cristia won the Monte Carlo Rally driving a Ford V8 flathead.
1949, Jim Roper, driving a Lincoln, won the first NASCAR race.
1950, Jimmy Florian, driving a Ford, wins the first NASCAR race in a Ford-branded vehicle at Dayton, Ohio.
1963, Tiny Lund wins first Daytona 500 for Ford.
1965, Jim Clark gives Ford its first of 6 Indy wins between 1965 and 1971.
1967, Jim Clark, driving a Lotus Ford, won the Dutch Grand Prix.
This is Ford's first Grand Prix victory. 1968, Graham Hill, driving a Lotus Ford, won both the Drivers' World Championship and the Constructors' World Championship.
This is Ford's first of both respective championship wins. 1976, Ford v. Cosworth won its first Indy 500 and would dominate Indy with a Cosworth DFX over the next 10 years, by winning every race plus 2 more with the XP version for a 12 Indy win total between 1978 and 1996. The Ford Cosworth DFX powered 81 consecutive IndyCar victories from 1981 to 1986, and 153 victories total.
Won all US AC and kart championships between 1977 and 1987. 1994, Michael Schumacher bags his first Drivers' World Championship with Ford-powered Benetton B194 car.
2000, Dale Jarrett wins Ford's 10th Daytona 500.
2003, Giancarlo Fisichella, driving a Jordan Ford, won the Brazilian Grand Prix.
This is Ford's 176th and last Grand Prix victory.
2010, Von Gittin Jr. in the number 25 Ford Mustang wins the Formula Drift Championship.
2011, Trevor Payne wins the Daytona 500 in a 1-2-3 finish for Ford.
It was Ford's 600th NASCAR victory. 2012, Michael Shank Racing wins the 50th Rolex 24 at Daytona with a Ford engine Riley chassis, Allo-Mendimer/Negri/Q/Wilson. Star Wars Motorsport finishes second in random Daytona prototype driver standings, Ryan Dalziel, and wins the first North American Endurance Championship, also with Ford power.
2013, Greg Biffle wins the Quicken Loans 400, Ford's 1000th NASCAR win.
2014, debut of the Ford EcoBoost twin-turbo engine for the Tudor United Sports Car Championship, Chip Ganassi Racing, with Felix Saints win the Mobil 1 12 hours of Sebring using the engine.
2015, Ford Racing, alongside Ford Team RS and Special Vehicle Team, merged into a global entity named Ford Performance, as they also will make 12 performance cars by 2020.
Wins Rolex 24 hours of Daytona overall, with Chip Ganassi Racing, with Felix Saints, Cannon/McMurray/Larson/Dixon, using Ford EcoBoost Riley DP. 2016, Ford entered 4 Ford GT cars in the 2016 24 Hours of Le Mans GTE Pro Class, finished 1, 3, 4, and 10.
2018, Joey Logano wins at Homestead Miami Speedway and wins Ford Performance its first NASCAR Cup Championship since 2004 and first Manufacturers Championship since 2002.
2020, Von Gittin Jr. in the number 25 Ford Mustang wins the Formula Drift Championship.
2022, Von Gittin Jr. and Lauren Healy number 2567 win 4600 King of the Hammers race in new 6th generation Bronco.
2023, Ford announced their return as a Formula One engine manufacturer for 2026 after nearly 20 years of absence in Formula One and will partner with Red Bull Powertrains as Red Bull Ford Powertrains.
Red Bull Ford Powertrains will supply engines to Red Bull Racing and RV Formula One team. 2023, Von Gittin Jr. and Lauren Healy number 2567 win 4600 King of the Hammers race.
2023, Chelsea Denofa in the number 88 Ford Mustang wins the first championship for the 7th generation Mustang in the Formula Drift Championship.
And 2024, as part of their partnership with Red Bull and the company's broader STEM and DEI initiatives to further attract more women to the sport across all levels and roles, Ford signed the title partnership deal with Red Bull to form the Red Bull Ford Academy program in support of EMLI to use for the 2024 season of F1 Academy.
For the 2025 F1 Academy season, the Red Bull Ford Academy program will support Chloe Chambers. And 2024, James Dean in the number 130 Ford Mustang wins the Formula Drift Championship. This list only includes vehicles produced post-2016 after the merger of Ford Team RS and Special Vehicle Team. Currently sold: Ford Explorer ST,
Ford F-150 Raptor,
Ford Focus ST,
Ford Bronco Raptor,
and Ford Ranger Raptor. Previously sold: Ford Fiesta ST,
Ford Focus RS,
Ford Mustang Shelby GT350/GT350R,
Ford Mustang Shelby GT500,
Ford Mustang Mach 1,
Ford Edge ST,
and Ford GT. Factory drivers: current, Ben Parker,
Joey Head,
Arjun Maini,
Jen Martinborough,
Christopher Mize,
Dirk Muller,
Dennis Olsen,
Judith Aiga,
Andy Priox,
Sebastian Priox,
Mike Rikensler,
David Schumacher,
and Frederick Vervish. Ford Performance Teams, Formula One, Red Bull Racing 2026-2.
and Visa Cash App RB 2026-2.
NASCAR, Cup Series, Team Penske 1994-2002, 2013 to present.
RFK Racing 1988 to present.
Front Row Motorsports 2010 to present.
Haas Factory Team 2025 to present.
Rickware Racing 2022 to present.
And Witt Brothers Racing 1950 to present.
Xfinity Series, RSS Racing 2021 to present.
Haas Factory Team 2025 to present.
And AM Racing 2023 to present. Truck Series, Force Sport Racing 2018 to 2020, 2023 to present.
Front Row Motorsports 2020 to present.
And Rome Brothers Racing 2023 to present. Australia Supercars Championship, Blanchard Racing Team 2021 to present.
Dick Johnson Racing.
Grove Racing 2020 to present.
Dick Ford Racing 2003 to present.
And Wikinshaw and Freddy United 2023 to present. World Endurance Championship, Proton Competition 2024-2. Past teams are Matec GT Racing, SunTrust Racing, Ford World Rally Team, Moongate Ford World Rally Team, Red Performance Motorsports, Bill Elliott Racing, Yates Racing, Richard Petty Motorsports, Jordan Grand Prix, Stewart Grand Prix, Jaguar Racing, Benetton Formula, Sauber F1 Team, Minardi F1 Team, Team AM, Mark VDS Racing Team, Belgian Racing, Fisher Racing, FWRT. Hoonigan Racing Division, Chip Ganassi Racing, Ulster NSE, SS Greenlight Racing, and Stuart Haas Racing. Along with Shelby and Chevrolet, Ford is one of only 3 American constructors to win titles on the international scene at the FIA World Championships.
As a constructor, Ford won the World Sports Car Championship 3 times, in 1966, both Sports Prototype category and Grand Touring, GT, category, 1967, GT category, and 1968, Sports Prototype category, and at the World Rally Championship Ford won 4 World Drivers' Championships. In 1979, 1981, 2017 and 2018, as well as 4 World Manufacturers' Championships. In 1979, 2006, 2007 and 2017.
As an engine supplier, Ford also won 15 Formula One World Drivers' Championships and 10 Formula One World Constructors' Championships. Ford is also one of only 3 constructors to complete the Triple Crown of Motorsport, wins at the Indianapolis 500, 24 Hours of Le Mans, and Monaco Grand Prix. A feat that Ford achieved as an engine manufacturer by winning the 1968 Monaco Grand Prix. Indy cars, with Ford engines first, competed in 1935 using a production-based Ford V8 and the Miller Ford Racer.
A pushroom Ford V8 raced with Lotus in 1963, and Ford's first Indy win was in 1965 with a DOHC V8.
Ford Motors, including the Ford-sponsored DFX engine, developed by Cosworth, has won the Indianapolis 500 18 times.
On May 12, 1996, a relay Indic, while driving an Indy car, powered by Ford Cosworth XD engine, broke the Indianapolis 500 record for fastest qualification lap. 237.498 miles per hour, 382.216 kilometers per hour, and fastest qualification 4-lap average. 236.986 miles per hour, 381.392 kilometers per hour.
The speed records still stand as of 2022. Formula Ford, conceived in the UK in 1966, is an entry-level type of formula racing with wingless single-seater cars.
Many of today's Formula racing drivers started their car racing careers in this category.
Ford was heavily involved in Formula One for many years and supplied engines to a large number of teams from 1967 until 2004.
These engines were designed and manufactured by Cosworth, the racing division that was owned by Ford from 1998 to 2004.
Ford dashed engines won 176 Grand Prix between 1967 and 2003 for teams such as Team Lotus and McLaren.
Ford entered Formula One as a constructor in 2000 under the Jaguar Racing name after buying the Stewart Grand Prix team, which had been its primary works team in the series since 1997.
Jaguar achieved little success in Formula One, and after a turbulent 5 seasons, Ford withdrew from the category after the 2004 season, selling both Jaguar Racing, which became Red Bull Racing, and Cosworth, to Gerald Forsyth and Kevin Cockhiven. Ford has announced that it will return to Formula One in 2026 following a partnership with Red Bull Powertrains, supplying power units to Red Bull Racing and their second team Racing Bulls. Cosworth is a British automotive engineering company, founded in London in 1958, specializing in high-performance internal combustion engines, powertrain, and electronics for automobile racing, motorsport, and mainstream automotive industries.
Cosworth is based in Northampton, England, with facilities in Cottenham, England, Silverstone, England, and Indianapolis, Indiana, U.S.
Cosworth has collected 176 wins in Formula One, F1, as engine supplier, ranking third, with most wins, behind Ferrari and Mercedes. The company was founded as a British racing internal combustion engine maker in 1958 by Mike Costin and Keith Duckworth.
Its company name, Cosworth, was derived as a portmanteau of the surnames of its two founders, Costin and Duckworth.
Both of the co-founders were former employees of Lotus Engineering Limited, and Cosworth initially maintained a strong relationship with Lotus's Colin Chapman. Initial revenues of the company came almost exclusively from Lotus.
When the company was founded in 1958, Duckworth left Lotus, leaving Costin, who had signed a term employment contract with Chapman at the company.
Until 1962, Costin worked on Cosworth projects in his private time while being active as a key Lotus engineer on the development of Lotus 15 through 26 Elan, as well as leading the Team Lotus contingent at foreign races, as evidenced by the 1962 Le Mans Lotus scandal. Initial series production engines, Mark II, Mark V, Mark 8, and Mark 14 were sold to Lotus exclusively, and many of the other racing engines up to Mark 12 were delivered to Team Lotus.
The success of Formula Junior engines, Mark III, 4, 11, and 17, started bringing in non-Lotus revenues, and the establishment of Formula E by the Sports Car Club of America, SCCA, allowed the financial foundation of Cosworth to be secured by the increased sales of Mark 13, a pure racing engine, based on Lotus Twinkum, through its domination of the class.
This newly found security enabled the company to distance itself from the Lotus Mark 7 and LN optional road engine assembly business, and allowed its resources to be concentrated on racing engine development. The first Cosworth design cylinder head was for SCA series with a single overhead camshaft, SOHC, reverse flow configuration, similar to the Coventry Climax FWE engine.
A real success was achieved with the next gear-driven double overhead camshaft, DOHC, 4-valve FVA, in 1966. When Cosworth, with the help from Chapman, convinced Ford to purchase the rights to the design and sign a development contract, including an 8-cylinder version.
This resulted in the DFV, which dominated Formula One for many years. From this time on, Cosworth was supported by Ford for many years, and many of the Cosworth designs were owned by Ford and named as Ford engines under similar contracts.
Cosworth then went through a number of ownership changes.
After Duckworth decided he did not want to be involved with the day-to-day business of running a growing company, he sold his stake to United Engineering Industries, UEI, in 1980, retaining his life presidency and day-to-day technical involvement with Cosworth. And becoming a UEI board director, UEI was a group of small to medium-sized technology companies, which was taken over by Carlton Communications in 1988.
Carlton was primarily interested in some of the audio-visual companies in the UEI portfolio, and Cosworth was a poor fit with these. A new hire for the company in the engineering/automotive sector was sought, and the traditional engineering company Vickers plc bought Cosworth in 1990.
In September 1998, Vickers sold Cosworth to Audi.
Audi kept the engineering, manufacturing and casting unit, which it called Cosworth Technology, and sold the race engine division, Cosworth Racing, and its electronics division, Tire Research, to Ford.
In December 2004, Audi announced that it had sold Cosworth Technology to Mala GmbH. The company was renamed as Mala Powertrain on 1 July 2005. On 15 November 2004, Ford sold Cosworth Racing to Champ Car World Series owners Gerald Forsyth and Kevin Cockhiven.
In December 2004, Ford also sold tire research to Cockhiven and Forsyth, creating the Cosworth Group.
Since 2006, Cosworth has diversified to provide engineering consultancy, high-performance electronics, and component manufacturer services outside of its classic motorsport customer base.
On 25 February 2008, Cosworth was awarded a $5.4 million contract by the United States Navy to develop a heavy fuel engine for their RQ-21A Blackjack unmanned aerial vehicle, UAV.
Cosworth supplied its last Premier Class racing engines to one F1 team in 2015, the Marussia F1 team. The following is a list of initial products, with cylinder heads modified, but not originally designed by Cosworth, on Ford Kent engine cylinder blocks.
The exceptions were Mark 17 and MAE modified Anglia engine, which had intake port sleeves for downdraft carburetors, brazed into the stock cast iron cylinder head, in place of the normal side draft ports, thus could be considered Cosworth designs.
In addition to the above, Cosworth designed and provided the assembly work for Lotus Elan special equipment optional road engines, with special camshafts and high compression pistons. The final model of the above initial series was the MAE in 1965, when new rules were introduced in Formula 3 allowing up to 1,000 cubic centimeters, 61.0 cubic inches, engines with 36 millimeters intake restrictor plates.
MAE used one barrel of a 2-barrel Weber IDA downdraft carburetor, with the other barrel blanked off.
The domination of this engine was absolute as long as these regulations lasted until 1968.
As Cosworth had a serious difficulty meeting the demand, the MAE was mainly sold as a kit.
This experience led to the later FVA/DFV contract to be drawn, where the responsibility of development rested with Cosworth, and the manufacturing right and responsibility rested with Ford.
There also were some specially cast iron heads, with similar dimensions to these brazed heads with titanium alloy valve spring retainers called the Screamer Head for MAE in later years.
A year before the introduction of the MAE, the single overhead cam 2-valve SCA was introduced.
It was a 997 cubic centimeters engine, based on Ford Cortina 116E block, that was designed for Formula 2, and featured the first totally Cosworth designed head, Lactal forged crankshaft, steel main bearing caps and pistons, with only one compression ring and one oil scraper ring each.
Cylinder head to block sealant was via head gasket incorporating Cooper rings.
The basic configuration was quite similar to Coventry Climax FWE on Lotus Elite, including its SOHC reverse flow design, except for a series of 7 spur gears. 1 on the crank, 2 intermediary gears on 2 fixed shafts, mounted on the front cover back plate, 1 on the 116E camshaft used as a jack shaft, 2 on a common, fixed shaft in the head, and 1 on the camshaft, driving a 5-bearing camshaft and the Ford 5 main bearing iron block.
The intake ports and the oil-scavenged pickup for dry sump lubrication were canted 25 degrees, so they faced straight up and down, respectively, when the engine was mounted 25 degrees from vertical to the right, for a lower center of gravity. The SCA initially had 240 DC M2 Weaver twin-choke downdraft sandcast carburetors mounted on top to produce 115 horsepower, which was replaced by Lucas fuel injection in 1966, eventually reaching 140 horsepower.
The SCA won the first race of the new 1L Formula 2 rules, 1964 PA Grand Prix, in the hands of Jim Clark, on 5 April 1964.
This race was also the inaugural race of FFSA Trophies, the France Championship, in which SCA drove the series champions in 1964, 1965 and 1967. The longer stroke SCB was built to compare against the 1,498 cubic centimeter Mark 16, and upon proving its superior power against the Mundy, designed two-valve crossflow DOHC head. It acted as the benchmark for the development of FV8 to measure the benefits and shortcomings of a four-valve crossflow DOHC design.
It was the results of this four-valve development work that formed the basis for many of the Cosworth engines that followed.
A larger 85mm bore SCC, with the same short-stroke 5-bearing crankshaft as the SCA was built and sold, for SCCA 1.1-liter sports car class. The Cortina crossflow block was also the basis for the FVA 4-valve Type A, an F2 engine introduced in 1966 and developed under the same contract as the DFV for the new 1.6-liter engine rules.
This engine featured 16 valves operated by twin overhead camshafts, driven by a train of 9 gears.
The metering unit for the Lucas mechanical fuel injection was rotated by a tooth belt from the gear, driven in with cam, while the exhaust cam directly drove an alternator on the rear of the head.
It produced 225 brake horsepower, 168 kilowatts, at 9,000 revolutions per minute.
This engine dominated the category until 1971 and was also used in sports car racing in 1.8-liter form as the FVC. The cylinder head on the FVA pioneered many of Duckworth's ideas that would be used on the DFV and a mule for the 8-cylinder engine development. FVB was built.
However, the distance between the two camshafts and the valve inclination angle were larger than on DFV for the series.
The larger displacement FVD was designed and released for endurance racing in 1975 that displaced 1,975 cubic centimeters, 120.5 cubic inches, on the aluminium block, developed for DDG.
The FVD produced only 275 brake horsepower, 205 kilowatts, down from the 325 horsepower, 242 kilowatts, that other twin-cam four-cylinders such as the Hart 420S produced, but was more reliable.
One was campaigned in the Canon series in 1978 in the Austria SR1, built and driven by Dan Hartill. In 1966, Colin Chapman, Lotus Card founder and principal of Team Lotus, persuaded Ford to bankroll Keith Duckworth's design for a new lightweight 3,000 cubic centimeter, 183.1 cubic inches, Formula 1 engine.
Cosworth received the order along with the 100,000 pounds that Ford felt inadequate to spend on such an objective.
The contract stipulated that a four-cylinder Ford-based F2 engine would be developed as proof of concept, see the FV8 above, and that a pure Cosworth V8 would be built based on this. The DFV design used a similar cylinder head to the one Duckworth had prototyped on the four-cylinder FVB unit on a custom Cosworth cylinder block and crankcase, forming a single 90-degree V8 engine, thus creating a legend in its own right, the DFV, meaning double four-valve.
This engine and its derivatives were used for a quarter of a century, and it was the most successful in the history of Formula 1/Grand Prix motor racing.
Winning 167 races in a career lasting over 20 years, it was the product that put Cosworth engineering on the map.
Although originally designed for Formula 1, the engine has been modified to be used in a range of categories.
The DFV won on its first outing at the 1967 Dutch Grand Prix in the hands of Jim Clark, fitted to a Lotus 49, and from 1968 was available for purchase to any F1 team that wished it.
During the 1970s, it was common for almost the entire field, with a notable exception of Ferrari, the RM and Alfa Romeo scoring wins and titles with V12 engines. To use one of these engines, this at a time when independent wealthy individuals could buy exactly the same engine off the shelf that was also being used by McLaren and Al.
Most teams just built a tub around the Cosworth DFV and a Hewland gearbox.
It won a record 155 World Championship races, the last being Detroit in 1983, towering a Tyrrell, driven by Michel Alboreto.
Although the DFV, or 3.373 inches, 85.67 millimeters, stroke, 2.555 inches, 64.90 millimeters, displacement, 2,992.98 cubic centimeters, 182.6 cubic inches, with 410 brake horsepower, 306 kilowatts, 416 for Destrik, at 9,000 revolutions per minute did not produce as much power as some of its rival 12-cylinder engines. It was lighter, resulting in a better power-to-weight ratio.
In addition to being lighter, it was also made a structural part of the car itself by placing load-bearing arms to stress the block.
These design aspects appeal tremendously to the genius of Colin Chapman, who used them to the fullest extent. The DFY, introduced in 1982, was a further evolution of the DFV for Formula 1 with a shorter stroke and a DFL or 3.543 inches, 89.99 millimeters stroke, 2.316 inches, 58.83 millimeters, displacement 2,993.38 cubic centimeters, 182.7 cubic inches, with 520 brake horsepower, 388 kilowatts, 527 for Destrik, at 11,000 RPM, thereby producing more power, but still unable to fight against the turbo-charged cars of the day.
It was the advent of turbo-charged engines in Formula 1 which sounded the death knell for the venerable DFV, and in 1986 Cosworth returned to the lower formulae, preparing the DFV for the newly created Formula 3000 with the installation of a compulsory 9,000 revolutions per minute reverend limiter, which scaled power back from 500 to 420 brake horsepower, 313 kilowatts, 426 for Destrik. The DFV remained in this class until 1992 and the DFY until 1995.
By this time, the Cosworth ACV8 replaced the DFV/Y in F3000 and was the dominant engine in the class until it became a spec series in 1996 using a Zytek Jet V8.
The final F3000 engines gave 500 brake horsepower, 373 kilowatts, 507 for test torque, almost equaling the 1983 DFV, which gave 510 brake horsepower, 380 kilowatts, 517 for test torque, at 11,200 revolutions per minute.
In Formula One, a new DFV-based design was introduced for the new 3,500 cubic centimeters, 213.6 cubic inches, normally aspirated rules in 1987.
The DFZ was produced as an interim model, but in 1988 Cosworth created the DFV's final evolution, the DFR, which soldiered on in F1 with smaller teams until 1991, scoring its last points, including a pair of second places by Gina Lazy with Tyrrell in 1990.
The DFV has recently been given a new lease of life as a result of interest in classic F1 racing, which was given a world championship status by the FIA in 2004. The DFV spawned a number of derivations.
In 1968, Cosworth created the DFV's first derivation, a 2,500 cubic centimeters, 152.6 cubic inches version for the Tasman series, the DFW.
The DFW conversion simply involved substitution of a short stroke crank and longer connecting rods. One of the most successful and longest-lived projects of Cosworth has been its kart/shemp car engine program.
In 1975, Cosworth developed the DFX by bestroking the engine to 2,650 cubic centimeters, 161.7 cubic inches, and adding a turbocharger. The DFX became the standard engine to run in IndyCar racing and in the reign of the Offenhauser, and maintaining that position until the late 1980s.
Ford backed Cosworth with creating a new interim design for IndyCar racing in the late 1980s, the DFS, which merged DFR technology into the aging DFX design, but it was eventually rendered obsolete by advancing technology. While designed as an F1 engine, the DFV was also used as in endurance racing, although its flat plane crank design led to destructive vibrations putting stress on devices surrounding the engine, especially the exhaust system.
The first sports car to use a DFV, the Ford P68, failed to finish a single race because of repeated mechanical and electrical failures.
Despite this handicap, the DFV won the 24 Hours of Le Mans twice in its original 3.0-liter form for Mirage in 1975 and Rondeau in 1980. Who were able to attain sufficient reliability by detuning the motor. The DFL for endurance racing was developed for the 1982 season to replace the DFV.
It came in two versions, one with 3,298 cubic centimeters, 201.3 cubic inches, and the other with 3,955 cubic centimeters, 241.3 cubic inches.
While neither competed well in the Group C, C1 class, the former was adapted to the C2 class, 700 kilograms minimum weight, 55-liter fuel, 5 refuelings per 1,000 kilometers, starting in 1984.
During the latter half of the 1980s, it was the most popular motor for that class, with successful championship campaigns and 5 class wins at the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
The latter version's severe lack of reliability caused it to fall out of use by 1985. Cosworth solidified its association with Ford in 1969 by developing a double overhead camshaft, DOHC, 16-valve inline 4-cylinder engine for road use in the Ford Escort.
As Keith Duckworth was busy designing and developing the DFV, the project was assigned to Mike Hall, who created the 1,601 cubic centimeters DDA on the Ford Kent engine block for homologation purposes.
The camshafts were driven by a tube belt developed for Fiat 124, hence the name DDA, literally meaning belt drive, A type.
It was designed for FIA Group 2 and Group 4 on either rallying or touring car racing purpose.
The nominal homologation at 1,601 cubic centimeters capacity meant that DDA engine cars competed in what was usually the top class, 1,600 cubic centimeters and up, so were eligible for overall victories rather than class wins. In 1970, the 1,701 cubic centimeters DDD was created for the Escort RS 1600, and this engine received fuel injection for the first time in the series as 1,701 cubic centimeters DDC.
2 years later, the DDA series was adopted for Formula 2. First came the 1,790 cubic centimeters DDE. Then the 1,927 cubic centimeters DDF, eventually reaching a maximum of 1,975 cubic centimeters DDG in 1973.
As the bore size reached ever closer to the bore center distance, leaving little space in between cylinders, all three types had brazed in cylinder liners to the block.
As a departure from the Ford iron block, the DDG received the new aluminium block, originally designed by Brian Hart in 1971 and re-engineered by Cosworth. Soon after, and this cylinder block was used as a replacement part in rebuilding many other DD series engines as well as some Mark 13 engines.
The iron block was also used for smaller displacements, starting with a very successful 1,599 cubic centimeters Formula Atlantic DDD in 1970. Followed by the 1,098 cubic centimeters DDJ and 1,300 cubic centimeters DDH variants for SCCA Formula C and sports car racing, respectively.
There was even a one-off 785 cubic centimeters version built by Cosworth employees Paul Squires and Phil Kidsley. Fitted with a Lishon supercharger, it was installed in a Brabham BT28 Formula 3 chassis and competed in the British Hill Climb Championship as the Brabham Lishon.
In 1970, Ford asked Westlake & Co. of Rye, East Sussex to build the DDD for them, and by the end of 1970, the production line was installed at Rye and production was underway.
These engines were often called the DDA, but were 1,599 cubic centimeters DDDs eligible for under 1.6 liter class.
The 1,599 cubic centimeters DDD engine won a number of championships around the world in Formula Atlantic and Formula Pacific during the 1980s. In 1975, 1,599 cubic centimeters big valve DDM, 225 brake horsepower was developed with fuel injection for Formula Atlantic. And the sealed engine version DDN, 1,599 cubic centimeters, 210 brake horsepower, followed in 1977 for Canadian Formula Atlantic Series. Largely known as Cosworth VDA or Ford VDA, VDD and VDM were also very successful in Formula Pacific and Formula Mondial racing in Australia and New Zealand.
In open-wheel racing, Cosworth-powered cars, Roltar T4 and Tigas, won Australian Drivers' Championship in 1982 to 1986 as well as winning the Australian Grand Prix in 1981 to 1984, including wins by Alain Prost and Roberto Merino, before the race became part of the Formula One World Championship in 1985. and won the New Zealand Grand Prix each year from 1982 to 1988.
VDD and VDM engines were also prominent in the Australian Sports Car Championship during the 1980s, winning the 1987 championship. The turbo-charged 1,778 cubic centimeters VDT was created in 1981, which powered the never-raced RWD Sport RS 1700T.
In 1984, 4WD-Ford RS200 debuted with a 1,803 cubic centimeters version of VDT, which was created for Group B rallying.
Between 1984 and 1986, the VDT engine was used in Group C endurance racing by Roy Baker in Class C2 using the TaBNWNE GC284, GC285 and GC286.
Later in 1986, a 2,137 cubic centimeters version was created by Brian Hart using a bespoke aluminium block and a large intercooler for RS200 Evolution. Just as Group B was cancelled by the FIA.
This VDT E4 Evolution produced over 600 brake horsepower, 447 kilowatts, 608 for Destorque, in Group B Rallycross boost level. Normally producing 530 to 550 brake horsepower, 395 to 410 kilowatts, 537 to 558 for Destorque, on a lower but sustainable boost. In 1983, the VD series saw its second road engine incarnation, the first being the original VDA and VDB, the VDR, which was a VDA or VDB sold in kit form for the Caterham Super 7 in 1,601 cubic centimeters, 120 brake horsepower, and in 1,701 cubic centimeters, 130 brake horsepower formats. The Hart 415T and the Zexpeed 1500/4 F1 engines owe much to the VDA series, being essentially an aluminium block derivative using similar heads. A fuel-injected duct-driven DOHC-GA, also called the GAA, was based on the 60-degree V6 block of Ford Essex, and was used for the Ford Caprice, raced in Group 2, in the early 1970s.
This had a capacity of 3,412 cubic centimeters, 208.2 cubic inches, and was highly competitive against the BMW Straight Sixes.
The GA was also used in the later years of Formula 5000 in Europe. The GA or GAA was commissioned by Ford in May 1972, when Ford realized that the Cologne V6-based Westlake OHV V6 engines used in their Caprice, which competed in the European Touring Car Championship, had been modified to the point that no more performance could be extracted from them.
Mike Hall, who had already designed the highly successful Cosworth DFV and DDA engines, took on the task of developing a whole new engine based on the 3-liter Essex V6 block.
The new engine was radically different from the previously used Westlake unit in that it featured twin overhead camshaft aluminium alloy cylinder heads, 4 valves per cylinder, a Lucas mechanical fuel injection system, dry sub-boiling system, a steel crankshaft, and enlarged displacement of 3,412 cubic centimeters, compared with the 2.9 liters of the previously used Cologne V6, based Westlake V6. Ford expected a minimum of 400 horsepower from the new Cosworth engine. That figure was exceeded, with the engine producing 420 horsepower in the first test run.
In race 2, they finally produced around 462 brake horsepower, 345 kilowatts, 468 for Destorque. At 9,000 revolutions per minute and 300 foot-pounds of torque, 407 Newton meters.
The This meant that the new engine proved highly successful at competing against BMW in the 1973 season of the European Touring Car Championship, where the engine was installed in Ford's newly homologated Capri RS 3100. Ford Motorsport also sold 100 Cosworth GA V6 engines, most of them ending up in Formula 5000 cars. The GA/GAA V6 is a very rare and extremely expensive engine, with retail units priced at £50,000. The FVA and FVC engines were found in the Ford Granada and Ford Scorpio.
The FVA came first in 1991 and was also known as the DOA. It was based on the Ford Cologne V6 used in the Ford Sierra and Ford Capri and other models, and was a twin overhead camshaft 24-valve conversion for more power, producing 195 metric horsepower, 143 kilowatts, 192 brake horsepower, and better idle quality.
In 1995, with a new version of the Scorpio, it was upgraded with a wider torque spread and higher power to 204 Ford, 150 kilowatts, 201 horsepower from a variable intake system and reprofile cams.
The MVH was improved with a change from a single chain to drive all four camshafts to one chain to drive one bank of cams in the second for the other bank. This engine was known as the Bob.
A racing version was also available for a short time, FVE, with an individual throttle butterfly for each cylinder. FVD and FVD engines existed as development engines, but these were never released. The two production engines were always mated to an automatic gearbox, but have become popular in the custom car scene, where they have been mated to the 4x4 manual transmission and the rear-wheel drive manual transmission from the Ford Sierra XR4 and XR4x4.
There are also companies that offer twin and single turbo conversions and other modifications to increase power to usually around 400 brake horsepower, 300 kilowatts.
These engines can be bought relatively cheaply and, provided they are well serviced, engines have been known to cover over 200,000 miles without major work being required. The YD series is 1,993 cubic centimeters, 121.6 cubic inches. Engines are based on the older inline 4 Ford T88 engine block and were introduced in the road-going Ford Sierra RS Cosworth in 1986 with 204 Ford, 150 kilowatts, 201 brake horsepower.
With 5,000 units built for homologation purposes in Group A, both for rallies and touring cars.
Racing versions of the RS Cosworth were developing around 370 horsepower, 276 kilowatts, 375 Ford, but with a small Garrett T3 turbo on the car's reliability was a problem.
A limited edition Evolution model was introduced in mid-1987. Once the base of 5,000 cars had been built, only 500 Evo or upgraded versions were needed for group homologation. The Sierra RS 500, which included a bigger T4 turbo with power initially at around the 470 horsepower, 350 kilowatts, 477 Ford, marked in 1987, but in later years climbing to close to some 550 horsepower, 410 kilowatts, 558 Ford, in full racing trim.
The RS 500 came to dominate touring car racing in its heyday from 1987 to 1992, winning multiple championships and major races. Championship wins: World Touring Car Championship 1987 in French title.
Japanese Touring Car Championship 1987, 1988, 1989, 1989 in French title.
Australian Manufacturers Championship 1988, co-winners with BMW and Toyota 1990.
Australian Touring Car Championship 1988-1989.
European Touring Car Championship 1988 in France title.
Deutsche Tourenwagenmeisterschaft 1988.
NASCAR Series 1988, 1989, 1990.
Nissan Mobile 500 Series 1989-1990.
New Zealand Touring Car Championship 1989, 1990, 1992.
British Touring Car Championship 1990.
And Australian Endurance Championship 1990. Major race wins. Wellington 500 1987.
Fuji Intertech 500 1987, 1988, 1989.
RAC Tours Trophy 1988.
Sandown 500 1988, 1990.
Bathurst 1000 1988, 1989.
Kyoto 500 1988, 1989, 1990.
Spot 24 Hours 1989.
And Year Race of Macau 1989.
The only car to truly challenge the Sierra's power dominance towards the end of the Group A era in 1990 to 1992 was the 640 horsepower, 477 kilowatts, 649 for Destorque, 4WD twin-turbo Nissan Skyline R32 GTR. At the end of its life in Group A in 1992, the Australian Sierra teams were reportedly getting around 600 brake horsepower, 447 kilowatts, 608 for Destorque, from the 2.0L turbo, charged YV engines.
For his pole position lap at the 1992 Bathurst 1000, Australian driver Dick Johnson, whose team, since 1988, had a reputation for having the fastest Sierras in Group A racing anywhere in the world, was reportedly running a special qualifying engine and F1 level fuel supplied by the team's major sponsor Shell, consisting of a mix of toluene and methanol.
His YVD engine for the top 10 runoff at Bathurst was rumored to be producing up to 680 horsepower, 507 kilowatts, 689 for Destorque. The various color cam covers that distinguished each version were as follows. Red, YVD, Sierra Cosworth 2WD, Low 3-door and Sapphire, YVD, Sierra RS 500, YVJ, Sierra Sapphire 4WD, non-cat.
Green, YVG, Catalyst Equipped 4x4 Sierra Sapphire Cosworth.
Blue, YVT, Large Turbo Escort Cosworth.
And Silver, YVT, Small Turbo Escort Cosworth.
Further evolutions of the YV included a reduced emissions road version, as well as the block used in the Escort RS Cosworth, which used the Sierra floor pan.
The engine stopped being used on new cars in 1997 with a Focus WRC and road-going Focus RS instead relying on Zetec designs.
Cosworth experimented with turbo-charged VD derivatives before settling on an all-new turbo-charged 1,500 cubic centimeters, 91.5 cubic inches V6 engine to be badged as the Ford TEC. Internally it was known as the GB series.
This had a long development history dating back to the 1984 British Grand Prix at Brands Hatch, where Cosworth and Ford's competition department agreed to build a new turbo engine to replace the outdated DFV/DFY series.
The TEC raced only briefly in 1986 with a Haas Lola team and in 1987 with a Benetton team.
The The development of the GDA engine at Cosworth became the subject of a British TV documentary in Channel 4's Equinox series, broadcast in 1986.
The GDA was designed by Keith Duckworth and Jeff Goddard, though many in Formula One doubted Duckworth's ability to design another truly competitive engine due to his known distaste for turbocharging in general.
Rather than design an entirely new engine, Duckworth instead chose to originally try and develop an old, modified four-cylinder PDA sports car engine, as he believed four-cylinder engines were more compact and economical than a V6. Cosworth's chief race engine designer Jeff Goddard was against the idea of the straight four, but reluctantly let Duckworth go down that path.
However, after numerous failures of the test engines on the dynamometer, which were eventually traced to an incurable vibration at the crankshaft, Duckworth and Goddard designed an all-new 120-degree V6 engine instead. The same configuration as the Ferrari V6 turbo engine used from 1981 to 1986.
The PDA engine was originally limited to 10,000 RPM in sports car racing, but with a turbo its failures generally happened at around 11,000 RPM.
The first four-cylinder test engine was so badly damaged that it actually changed the shape of the engine block to the point where the crankshaft would not move. The engine was simply not designed to be turbocharged.
As around 4 months had been lost in trying to get the four-cylinder engine to work, Ford and Cosworth's plan for the engine to debut with Osceola in 1985 was pushed back to the 1986 season.
The GDA engine was first road tested by Osceola's lead driver, 1980 world champion Alan Jones, in the new Lola THL2 at the Oram Circuit in Essex, just northeast of London on 21 February 1986.
In freezing, snowy conditions, -6 degrees Celsius, at approximately 10 a.m., the V6 turbo, running a conservative 2.5 bar boost setting, ran cleanly. Although the engine management electronics developed by Motorola in the United States and Cosworth had not yet been finalized, and the engine ran with the same electronics that were used on the dynamometer.
Also present at the test were Duckworth, Goddard, the THL2's designer Neil Oatley, the team's number 2 driver Patrick Tambay, and other staff from both Osceola, Ford and Cosworth. The engine made its Formula One debut, with Jones driving the Lola THL2 at the 1986 San Marino Grand Prix, the third round of the 1986 season, for the opening 2 races in Brazil and Spain. The team used their 1985 car, the Hart 415T turbo-powered Lola THL1, while Tambay also drove the THL1 at Imola.
Jones qualified in 21st place and retired after 28 of the race's 60 laps due to overheating.
Jones also recorded the engine's first finish when he placed 11th in the Belgian Grand Prix.
Jones and teammate Patrick Tambay captured the Ford V6 Turbo's first ever points when they finished 4th and 5th respectively in the Austrian Grand Prix, with Jones backing up in the next race in Italy with a 6th placed finish, the final points the engine would gain in 1986.
Producing approximately 900 brake horsepower, 671 kilowatts, 912 for torque, the turbo-charged V6 is the most powerful Formula One engine designed and built by Cosworth.
With Osceola not competing in 1987, Benetton having lost the use of the four-cylinder BMW engines when the German giant pulled out of Formula One, signed with Ford to race their V6 for the season.
While in 1986 Turbo Boost had been unrestricted by the rules, 1987 saw the FIA introduce the top-off valve to the turbo, charged engines in a 2-year plan to outlaw the turbos and make all Formula 1 engines 3.5 liters and naturally aspirated by the start of the 1989 season.
While Cosworth adapted the TEC to 1987's 4.0 bar turbo limit and the new 195-liter fuel limit. Development of the V6 turbo engine, which would be obsolete in less than 2 years, virtually stopped.
Cosworth instead worked on the DFR V8 that was introduced with TaBNWNE in 1988. With a reduction in turbo boost limit not affecting the Ford V6 as much as others such as Honda, BMW and Ferrari, which had more horsepower to lose, the turbo engine would be more competitive with TaBNWNE in 1987. With Gio Foggi taking the engine's first podium, with third in Austria, followed by its last podium, when Fiery Boutzen also scored third in the last race of the season in Australia. The replacement for the DFV/DFG/DFR series was the HV series designed by Jeff Goddard as a 3,498 cubic centimeters, 213.5 cubic inches, 96 millimeters by 60.4 millimeters V8, introduced with a TaBNWNE team midway through 1989, making its debut at the French Grand Prix.
It won the Japanese Grand Prix that year. TaBNWNE used both the original HVA1 and the development HVA4 in 1989.
At Ford's de facto works team, TaBNWNE maintained exclusivity with this model through the rest of 1989 and 1990.
1991 saw the introduction of customer units, 2 specifications behind their works equivalents.
In 1991, these were supplied to the fledgling Jordan Grand Prix outfit, and for 1992, Lotus.
1993 saw the customer deal extended to McLaren, who had lost the use of their Honda V12 engines after 1992.
Using the customer HVA7 and later a customer HVA8, McLaren won 5 Grand Prix with triple world champion Ayrton Senna that year. The HVA1 V8 was introduced in 1989.
It exploited a narrower 75 degrees V angle rather than the 90 degrees used in the DFV series, and was originally rated at approximately 630 brake horsepower, 470 kilowatts, 639 for test torque.
By 1993, the factory HVA8 V8 engine used by TaBNWNE was producing approximately 700 brake horsepower, 522 kilowatts, 710 for test torque, at 13,000 revolutions per minute.
Although the HV V8 was less powerful than the V10s and V12s used by rivals Renault, Honda, and Ferrari, its advantage was that it was lighter and gave better fuel economy.
A Jaguar Fast version of the HV was developed by Tom Wikinshaw Racing to the tune of 650 brake horsepower at 11,500 revolutions per minute for sports car racing. Fitted to the extremely successful Jaguar XJR-14. The HV was developed into the 3,498 cubic centimeters, 213.5 cubic inches, 100 millimeters by 55.7 millimeters ECV8 for the 1994 season.
This engine, producing about 740 brake horsepower at 14,500 revolutions per minute, was dashed at Ford's Car. And Michael Schumacher won the Drivers' World Championship with TaBNWNE, his first of a record 7 championships, in 1994.
This was the last Ford Power F1 title. For the 1995 season, the F1 engine regulation changed to 3 liters, and the EC's bore and stroke were changed to 94 millimeters by 53.9 millimeters, resulting in 2,992 cubic centimeters. 182.6 cubic inches ECA, which was introduced at about 600 brake horsepower and developed to 610 to 630 brake horsepower at 14,000 revolutions per minute.
It was exclusively used by the Sauber team, whose biggest success of the year was Heinz Harald Frenzen's third place at Monza.
Customer unit Cosworth ED, not bashed at Ford Zeta car, for non-works teams, was also made for 1995, with about 580 brake horsepower for Syntec. Called the EDD, Pacific Racing EDC, and 40 EDD teams.
Minardi continued with Magneti Marelli engine management as per their HV in 1994, this version having the Cosworth designation EDM.
At the first test, with EDM, Luca Vador reported that this engine felt less powerful than the 3-liter 9,000 revolutions per minute reverend limited engine he has used to win the F3000 championship in 1992.
Cosworth later updated the ED to ED2/4 for Tyrrell with 2,995 cubic centimeters, 182.8 cubic inches, 94 millimeters by 53.95 millimeters, displacement for 600 brake horsepower, which was used until the end of 1997 season.
The ill-fated Mastercard Lola team initially entered in 1997 using the Ford ECA engine used by Sauber in 1995 and 40 in 1996.
However, the team withdrew from the championship before the second round of the season in Brazil, having failed to qualify for the first race in Australia.
In order to produce a higher power at higher revolutions per minute, a completely new 2,992 cubic centimeters, 182.6 cubic inches, 89 millimeters by 48.1 millimeters, JD72 degrees V10 was designed for 1996, which produced about 670 brake horsepower at 15,800 revolutions per minute, and used by Sauber Formula 1 team.
This engine was further developed into VJ and VJM with the same V-angle, bore and stroke, reaching 720 brake horsepower for racing, and 730 brake horsepower for qualifying at 16,500 revolutions per minute.
All 3 of these engines were badged at Ford Zeta car as well, and used by several teams.
In its debut season, the best result was another third place, this time taken by Johnny Herbert at Monaco.
This was surpassed 1 year later by Rubens Barrichello's sensational second place, again at Monaco, which was the first points finish for the newly formed Stewart Grand Prix team. The Stewart Grand Prix team effectively became the Ford Works team, and used Cosworth CR1 engines from its first season in 1997, which was a much lighter version of VJM. Ultimately reaching 770 brake horsepower at 16,500 revolutions per minute by 2001.
Over the next few years, Ford had increased its involvement with the Stewart team, and finally bought the team, renaming it Jaguar Racing, for 2000.
Ford pulled out of F1 at the end of 2004, but the team, bought by and renamed Red Bull Racing, continued to use Cosworth V10 engines until switching to a Ferrari V8 for 2006.
Minardi also used rebadged Cosworth engines until 2005.
Williams began testing the new CA 2006 2.4-liter V8 in November 2005, which produced about 755 brake horsepower at 19,250 revolutions per minute. 314.7 horsepower per liter, and began using Cosworth V8 engines for the 2006 season.
In the same year, Scuderia Toro Rosso used the tuned V10 engines, based on the 2005 units.
In 2007, however, the company was left without a partner when Williams chose to switch to Toyota Power and Scuderia Toro Rosso made the switch to Ferrari engines, as used in 2006 by their mother team Red Bull Racing. In Max Mosley's letter following the withdrawal of Honda from Formula One in December 2008, it was announced that Cosworth had won the tender to provide a standard engine to any interested participants.
The new engine would become the standard design, and manufacturers could opt to use whole units, construct their own from designs provided by Cosworth, or produce their own engine, with a caveat that it be limited to the same power as the new standard engine.
In 2010, Cosworth returned as the engine supplier for Williams and 3 new teams: Hispania Racing, Lotus Racing, and Virgin Racing.
The CA 2010 is the same 2.4-liter V8 base of the CA 2006 used by Williams, but has been retuned for the then-mandated 18,000 revolutions per minute limit required on all engines, down from its original 20,000 revolutions per minute implementation.
First units were ready and shipped to teams in mid-January for fitting 2 weeks prior to first track testing for the year. Cosworth designed a series of replacements for the DFS to be used in IndyCar and Champ Car Racing, the X Series, beginning in 1992 with the XP.
The XF was developed for the 2000 season to replace the XD, and was chosen as the spec engine for the Champ Car World Series in 2003.
The most recent derivative of the XF, the 2,650 cubic centimeters, 161.7 cubic inches, XFE quad cam 90 degrees V8 overhead camshaft, continued in that role through the 2007 season.
The Champ Car World Series imposed a reverend limit of 12,000 revolutions per minute, down from the over 15,000 revolutions per minute of 2002.
The 2004 model of the XFE had a rated power of nominal 750 horsepower, 559 kilowatts, 760 Fregestor, at 1,054 millimeters of mercury. Intake boost pressure and a maximum power of 800 brake horsepower, 597 kilowatts, 811 Fregestor, at 1,130 millimeters of mercury, during push to pass.
The 2004 XFE maximum speed was 12,000 revolutions per minute, reverend limited, and torque of 490 Newton meters, 361 foot-pounds.
The aluminium and iron turbo housing ran a boost of 5.9 pounds per square inch at sea level, equals boost of 12 inches of mercury, which is 41.5 inches of mercury absolute.
The methanol-fueled engine used a steel crankshaft and aluminium alloy pistons.
Weight was 120 kilograms, 264.6 pounds, and length was 539 millimeters, 21.2 inches. In 2007, the Ford name was removed from the engine as the manufacturer elected not to continue sponsorship of the series.
Several other engine changes were made, notably the removal of the calibrated top-off valve, designed to limit turbo boost pressure, replaced by engine electronics.
The rated life of the engine was 1,400 miles, 2,300 kilometers between revos.
Engines were sent by the race teams to Cosworth for the rebuild.
In 2007, Champ Car switched to the new Canis DP01 chassis, which was said to provide better ducting of airflow into the engine.
The Champ Car World Series merged into the Indy Racing League IndyCar Series prior to the 2008 season, and Cosworth does not currently provide engines to any American open-wheel racing series.
In mid-2003, Cosworth provided the 3.5-liter V8 XG. Launched as a Chevrolet Gen 4 engine to IRL IndyCar Series teams after the proprietary Chevrolet Gen 3 engine proved inadequate against rival Hondas and Toyotas during the 2003 season.
While many teams left Chevrolet after the 2003 season, those that stayed saw a significant improvement in performance with a new Chevworth engine compared to their previous units.
The XG finished second in its first race at Michigan on July 27, 2003.
Sam Hornish Jr. went on to win 3 races that season with a new XG.
The XG was reduced in size to 3-liter for 2004 season, and it won 1 race in 2005 during Chevrolet's final season in IRL. Currently these are 300 horsepower, 224 kilowatts, 304 for district, 2,300 cubic centimeters, 140.4 cubic inches. Straight 4 engines, based on the Mazda MZR engine, developed in cooperation with Mazda.
Changes include the billet crankshaft, barrel throttle bodies, new cylinder head with larger valves, pistons, con rods and camshafts.
And a tuned 250 horsepower, 190 kilowatts, 250 for district version, targeting club racers, is sold to the consumer market.
This engine retains the standard crankshaft and has a different cylinder head.
Both engines are built by Cosworth in Torrance, California, under the guidance of newly appointed technical designer Wayne Mary, formerly of Cosworth, in Worcester, UK. Best known in Europe for its relationship with Ford, in particular, because of the Cosworth name in the vehicle title on the high-performance Ford Sierra RS Cosworth and Ford Escort RS Cosworth. But also in the creation of other Ford models, the Escort RS 1600, Escort RS 1800, RS 200, and Scorpio 2.9 I-24V. In the US, the name has also appeared in the title of a road car, well before it did in Europe, as the Cosworth version of the Chevrolet Vega.
Only 3,508 1975 and 1976 Cosworth Vegas were produced from March 1975 through 1976.
The engine features the Vega sleeveless aluminium alloy block, fitted with forged components.
The twin-cam, 16-valve, aluminium cylinder head design was assisted by Cosworth, but Chevrolet did the development work.
The engine features electronic ignition, Bendix electronic fuel injection, and stainless steel headers.
The final U.S. emissions standardized version produces 110 brake horsepower.
Cosworth's EA Racing version was not successful due to engine block structural failures.
Chevrolet later produced a heavy-duty off-road block with thicker walls to better withstand a racing application, but by that time Cosworth had moved on.
Projected first-year sales of the Cosworth Vega had been 5,000.
With only 3,508 cars produced and many unsold, the car was discontinued.
1,500 hand-built Cosworth Vega engines were simply scrapped for lack of demand. Other published projects for Adam Opel AG include the Opel Ascona 400/Manta 400 rally cars and the 2.0-liter 16V engines in the Opel Kadett, Opel Astra GSI, Opel Vectra and Opel Calibra Turbo. Other companies known to have benefited from the Cosworth engineering input are Mercedes-Benz, with the 190 2.3 to 16, and Audi, notably their RS cars. Cosworth's involvement with Mercedes-Benz came with moves in the mid-1980s from the German manufacturer to re-enter motorsport after retiring from direct factory participation after the 1955 Le Mans crash, which killed 80 spectators.
Mercedes-Benz was looking to create a Group B rally car out of its new W201 chassis 190E model. And turned to the expertise of Cosworth to shorten the development time for this project.
Walls up. Buy their merch, buy their merch, buy their merch, buy their merch, buy their.
The request was a huge surprise for Cosworth, and the original brief for a 320 brake horsepower engine, based on the 136 brake horsepower Mercedes M102 2.3-liter SOHC 4-cylinder engine, was duly passed to Mike Hall, who drew the famed DFV and PDA engine.
Designed around the existing M102 head bolt pattern, the new twin cam 16-valve 10-tooth head had its valve set at 45 degrees included angle, rather than the 40 degrees angle of the PDA.
The valves were the biggest that could be fitted into the combustion chamber.
Flat-top pistons delivered the 10.5:1 compression ratio.
The new Cosworth WAA engine also was Cosworth's first one-piece head, that is, the camshaft carrier was cast integral with the head itself.
Again, the constraints of the existing head bolt pattern meant that Hall had to shift the camshaft bearings from outside each pair of cam lobes as in the PDA to in between each cylinder's pair of cam lobes.
The upside being that this configuration made for less flex at high revolutions per minute.
So we were Jenny and Sarah, a bolder day.
The advent of the AWD Turbo Audi Quattro gave the rear-wheel drive, normally aspirated 190 rally car no chance of being successful, and the competition car was stillborn.
Instead, Mercedes-Benz decided to recoup its development cost by selling the car as a road-going sports sedan.
Hall detuned the WAA race engine to 185 brake horsepower by reducing the port diameters, and a more restrictive fuel injection and induction was substituted for the race items to complete the detune.
All WAA 2.3 to 16 engines were built in the Cosworth factory, with the heads being produced by the cost-cast method.
Cosworth assisted with a later 2.5 to 16 engine, WAB, and the short-stroke 2.5 to 16 Evo engines, WAC, although these were all manufactured in-house by Mercedes-Benz.
The 190 2.3 to 16 became the basis for Privateer Mercedes entries into the DTM from 1988.
The short-stroke 2.5 to 16 190 EV02 was race-developed to 375 plus brake horsepower, gaining the 1992 DTM crown with Klaus Ludwig at the wheel. A 4,300 cubic centimeters, 262.4 cubic inches V10, designated WDA, was also built and tested in a Volvo S80 in 1997, but this did not see production. In 2017, Cosworth established an engineering partnership with Aston Martin on one of the world's most powerful hybrid electric road car engines for the Aston Martin Valkyrie.
Their naturally aspirated 6.5-liter V12 engine develops 1,000 horsepower, 746 kilowatts, 1,014 for desk torque. At 10,500 revolutions per minute and 740 newton meters, 546 pounds-foot of torque at 7,000 revolutions per minute. Claiming a new standard for maximum RPM and weight.
In 2020, Ford and Murray Automotive commissioned Cosworth to design and build a 3,994 cubic centimeters, 243.7 cubic inches V12 for use in their new T.50 sports car, which produces 663 for desk torque, 488 kilowatts, 654 horsepower at 11,500 revolutions per minute, and 467 newton meters, 344 pounds-foot of torque at 9,000 revolutions per minute. Cosworth was chosen by Bugatti to develop a V16 engine as part of the hybrid powertrain for the upcoming Bugatti Tourbillon.
The engine is reported to produce 1,000 for desk torque, 735 kilowatts, 986 horsepower, and 900 newton meters, 664 pounds-foot.
Cosworth made an attempt at designing a full Formula One Grand Prix car in 1969.
The car, designed by Robin Herd, used an original 4WD transmission, designed by Keith Duckworth. Different from the Ferguson used by all other 4WD F1 cars of the 1960s, and powered by a magnesium version of the DFV unit.
The car was planned to drive at the 1969 British Grand Prix, but it was silently withdrawn.
Whoa!
When Herd left to form March Engineering, the project was cancelled.
The external design of the car was a product of Herd's use of malachite wood aluminium laminate composite for the principal structural monocoque sections, a technique he pioneered on the first McLaren single-seat cars, including the McLaren M2B of 1966. I'm Molly, meeting Heaven Miller, wholly different person. In 2007 to 2009, Cosworth did not supply any engines in Formula One. 2014 to present, Cosworth has not been supplying any engines in Formula One. Red Bull Powertrains Limited, RBPT, is a Formula One power unit manufacturing company owned by the Austrian Red Bull GmbH and based in the United Kingdom.
The company was formed in 2021 to take over the operation of Formula One power units developed by Honda from 2022 onwards following the Japanese manufacturer's withdrawal from the sport after 2021.
Honda continued to support the Red Bull-owned teams in 2022 and will do so until the end of 2025.
Honda assembles the power units and provides trackside and race operation support.
The power units remain Honda's intellectual property, and due to a development freeze, Red Bull Powertrains will not develop them. Red Bull Powertrains will take full responsibility for engine supply and operations from 2026, when the company will be renamed to Red Bull Ford Powertrains, following a partnership with Ford Motor Company.
Red Bull Powertrains operates in a 5,000 square foot facility near to the Red Bull Racing Chassis Department in Milton Keynes.
In February 2021, Red Bull Advanced Technologies signed an exclusive distribution agreement for Formula One engines with Honda to start in the 2022 season, after the Japanese automaker left Formula One at the end of the 2021 season.
The engines were to be purchased from Honda and renamed Red Bull Powertrains units and supplied to its two teams currently competing in Formula One, Red Bull Racing and AlphaTauri, starting in 2022.
On 23 April 2021, Red Bull Powertrains announced the hiring of Ben Hodgkinson as technical director.
Hodgkinson had been head of mechanical engineering at Mercedes-AMG High Performance Powertrains since 2017 and had worked at the Brixworth factory for 20 years.
On 6 May 2021, Red Bull Racing announced the hiring of 5 more senior Mercedes engine employees: Steve Blewett, who will be the production director of the Red Bull Power Unit; Ahmed Mostadimi, Chief Engine, Electronics and Energy Recovery; Pip Claude, Head of Mechanical Design for Energy Recovery; Anton Mayo, Head of Combustion Power Unit Design; and Steve Brody, Leader of Combustion Engine Operations. On 2 October 2022, Honda announced an agreement for the re-strengthening of their partnership with Red Bull Racing and will maintain total oversight of the engines until 2025.
Honda's logo will also reappear on Red Bull Racing's and AlphaTauri's car from the 2022 Japanese Grand Prix onwards.
On 4 February 2023, Red Bull Racing and Ford Motor Company announced a strategic partnership that will see Ford return to Formula One in 2026 following new engine regulations.
Ford will provide expertise in areas including battery cell and electric motor technology, as well as power unit control software and analytics, and combustion engine development, and the company will be renamed to Red Bull Ford Powertrains.
The RBPTH001 was, despite its name, developed, produced, and maintained by Honda.
It was a derivative of the Honda RA621H, with different ignition timing, cylinder pressure, and MGU-H to account for the new E10 fuels.
The crankshaft and cylinder block geometry were also modified to ensure reliability when running on E10 fuels, and the specialized coating, developed by Honda's motorcycle division, was applied to the walls of the cylinders.
The injection system, exhaust, and the turbocharger's compressor and turbine were all optimized for E10 fuel.
The changes meant that the RBPTH001 weighed more than the RA621H, but the dimensions of the engines are virtually identical save for the exhaust and intake layout and the electrical components.
The new engine could also run at noticeably higher temperatures compared to the RA621H.
Despite the reduced energy density of the 2022 fuels, the RBPTH001 had greater thermal efficiency than its predecessor. Notes: retired before completion, but classified as more than 90% of the race distance was completed. Ford is one of 3 manufacturers in NASCAR's 3 major series: the Cup Series, Xfinity Series, and Truck Series.
Major teams include RFK Racing, Team Penske and Wood Brothers Racing.
Ford is represented by the Mustang GT in the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series and by the F-150 in the Truck Series.
Some of the most successful NASCAR Fords were the aerodynamic fastback Ford Torino, Ford Torino Talladega, Mercury Cyclone Spoiler 2, and Mercury Montegos, and the Aero Ford Thunderbirds.
The Ford nameplate has won 8 manufacturers' championships in the Cup Series, while Mercury has won 1.
In the Cup Series, Ford earned its 1000th victory in the 2013 Quicken Loans 400 at Michigan International Speedway.
The Ford Fusion is also used in the ARCA Menard Series. Ford has a long history in rallying and has been active in the World Rally Championship since the beginning of the World Championship, the 1973 season.
Ford took the 1979 manufacturer's title with Hanyu McCullough, Bjorn Waldegard, and Ari Vatanen driving the Ford Escort RS 1800.
In the Group B era, Ford achieved success with Ford RS 200.
Since the 1999 season, Ford has used various versions of the Ford Focus WRC to much success.
In the 2006 season, VP Ford World Rally Team secured Ford its second manufacturer's title with a Focus RS WRC 06 built by M Sport and driven by Flying Finns, Marcus Gronholm and Mikko Hirvonen.
Continuing with Gronholm and Hirvonen, Ford successfully defended the manufacturer's World Championship in the 2007 season.
Ford is the only manufacturer to score in the points for 92 consecutive races since the 2002 season opener Monte Carlo Rally. In March 1951, the Henry Lewis and Henry Burney broke the Cross to Africa record of the Algiers to Cape Town Rally with a 1950 Ford V8 from Cape Town to Paris. The Ford World Rally Team, also known as the Ford Motor Company Team prior to 2005, was Ford Motor Company's Factory World Rally Championship team.
It was a regular competitor in the series from the 1970s until withdrawing following the 2012 season.
Ford ended the 1978 season with a win for Hanyu McCullough on the season-ending Lombard RAC Rally at the hands of an Escort RS 1800.
He was followed by Bjorn Waldegard and Britain's Russell Brooks in similar machinery.
Ford won the World Rally Championship, WRC, in 1979 with a Ford Escort RS 1800 and drivers Hanyu McCullough, Bjorn Waldegard and Ari Vatanen. Ford did not officially enter any cars for these seasons after winning the 1979 World Rally Championship season. They instead concentrated on development of the Ford Escort RS 1700T. However, this program was cancelled in 1983.
A new car was required to compete with four-wheel drive Group B rivals like the Audi Quattro S1 and Peugeot 205 T16.
Lessons learned from the RS 1700T program were used in the development of the RS 200, which hit the stages in 1986.
However, Ari Vatanen did win the 1981 Drivers' Championship in a Rothmans liveried Ford Escort RS, but this was run by David Sutton Cars and not the official Works Ford team.
Having spent time away from the sport developing the Kia-style RS 200, Ford made a return to the World Rallying stage at the second round in Sweden.
Ford's new RS 200 featured four-wheel drive, a turbo-charged Cosworth VDT engine generating 450 brake horsepower and a new blue and white Ford Motorsport livery.
Ford employed the services of Swedish drivers Stig Blomqvist and Carl Grundle, but they would each only be entered on 4 rallies in a season, overshadowed with tragedy.
Grundle achieved the podium finish on the RS200's debut in Sweden, a result that would not be bettered all season. The following round in Portugal saw an RS200, driven by Joaquim Santos, leave the road, killing 3 spectators. Ford withdrew their entry for that rally.
5th place for Grundle on the Lombard RAC rally marked the end of the road for the RS200 as Group B rallying was banned for 1987. Ford finished 5th in the Manufacturers' Championship behind rivals Peugeot, Lancia, Volkswagen and Audi. Ford started the post-Group B era with a Sierra XR4x4, which had the benefits of 4WD, but was not as powerful as its rivals, and then replaced it with the RWD Sierra RS Cosworth, which was more powerful, but lacked grip and traction on the gravel rallies that dominate the World Rally Championship. Stig Blomqvist was entered into the Monte Carlo, Swedish and New Zealand rounds of the championship in a white Texaco, sponsored Ford Sierra XR4x4. He could only muster a 6th place finish on his home rally after being disqualified and crashing out of the other 2 rallies. The Sierra RS Cosworth proved to be far more successful in comparison. It would not win during 1987, but it did achieve a number of podium finishes.
The car debuted on the Safari Rally, again driven by Stig Blomqvist, but would retire following a fire. Its next outing would be on the island of Corsica.
Blomqvist would again retire, with turbo failure, but his teammates Carlos Sainz and Didier Auriol fared much better, finishing 7th and 8th respectively.
Ari Vatanen paired up with Blomqvist on the 1000 Lakes Rally in Finland, their speed and experience helping to negate some of the advantage of 4WD that their rivals enjoyed.
They finished 2nd and 3rd respectively. Ford finished the season with 2nd and 3rd places for Blomqvist and Jimmy McRae, again against more capable rival machinery.
Sporadic appearances throughout the season, with cars that were compromised in one way or another, meant that Stig Blomqvist would finish in a lowly 7th position in the Drivers' Championship, whilst Ford could only manage to finish 5th in the Manufacturers' Championship.
Ford entered the 1988 World Rally Championship season using both the XR4x4 and the Sierra RS Cosworth models. The Texaco sponsorship had gone, and the cars now featured a corporate blue and white, striped Ford color scheme, similar to that seen on the Ford RS200 in 1986.
The services of Stig Blomqvist, Carlos Sainz and Didier Auriol were retained from 1987, each driver being entered on the rallies in Portugal, Finland and Italy.
Blomqvist would also be entered for round 2 in Rally Sweden, whilst Sainz and Auriol were entered in Corsica.
A 3-car team of Blomqvist, Sainz and Mark Lovell were entered for the season-closing Lombard RAC Rally.
Blomqvist kicked off Ford's season with 2nd place on his home round in a Rally Sport Sweden-prepared Sierra XR4x4, the best result for the 4WD Ford, and something that would not be bettered.
The Ford Sierra RS Cosworth would return for round 3 in Portugal, and Blomqvist would use it to finish in 5th place, but only after Sainz and Auriol had both retired from the event.
Ford would return to winning ways in Corsica, Didier Auriol steering his green and white 10X-sponsored Sierra around the island ahead of opposition from Lancia for his first victory and Ford's 23rd in the top flight.
Sainz would collect points for 5th in Corsica and then 6th in Finland, another rally where Auriol would finish on the podium, this time in 3rd place, 2 places ahead of Blomqvist.
Oriole's luck ran out on the San Remo Rally in Italy, suffering an accident that would force him to retire. Sainz and Blomqvist would finish low down the order in 5th and 7th places respectively.
For the final round, in Great Britain, Swedish and Spanish crews would finish in 6th and 7th places, whilst Lovell would finish in a disappointing 17th place. In his bright yellow Sound 2000 sponsored Ford Sierra RS Cosworth.
Ford would finish the season second behind Lancia in the Manufacturers' Championship with a total of 79 points. It was evident from previous seasons that Ford did not have a car that was fully capable of challenging Lancia and their Delta Integral, so for the 1989 season the Blue Oval was absent for most of the rallies. Entering cars for the Corsica and Lombard RAC rally rounds only. 3 cars were entered in Corsica, a Q8 livery car for Gianfranco Cunico, a yellow Sound 2000 sponsored car for Mark Lovell, and a 3rd car for French driver Pierre César Peroni.
Lovell would retire after suffering from a misfire, Peroni would retire after an accident, and Cunico would go on to finish 7th overall.
The Italian driver would suffer the misfortune of retiring after an accident on his second Ford outing in Great Britain.
Ford would finish 13th in the manufacturer's standings after scoring just 6 points for the season.
Results over the past few seasons have proved one thing: in order to return to winning ways, Ford would need a powerful, turbocharged car with 4WD capabilities.
The 3-door Sierra RS Cosworth was no longer being sold by Ford, so they instead utilized the new Sierra RS Cosworth 4x4 4-door saloon model, which went on sale in 1990.
The new car was still powered by a Cosworth developed turbocharged engine, but delays sourcing a suitable gearbox meant that it would not be used until the end of the 1990 World Rally Championship season.
The team retained a Q8 sponsorship from the 1989 World Rally Championship season, the cars again being painted blue with cream-colored bumpers. But the driver lineup had almost completely changed, only Franco Cunico remained.
He was now joined by Pentti Airtala and Malcolm Wilson, who had been teammates at the Rothmans Rally team 10 years previously. Ford's season kicked off in Finland, where all 3 drivers left the start ramp, but would not see the finish. Airtala suffered a gearbox problem, Cunico suffered an accident, and Wilson withdrew after a service infringement.
Results were much better on Cunico's home rally in Italy, where he and Wilson again both retired, and Airtala finished in a disappointing 11th place.
Airtala was seated in car number 1 for the final round in Great Britain, but he and Wilson would again retire, the only Ford finisher being Alessandro Fiorio, who had replaced Cunico.
Ford would finish 8th in the championship with a total of 22 points.
The 1991 World Rally Championship season was an opportunity for Ford to push for victory again, and to evolve the Sierra RS Cosworth 4x4. Lessons learned on the stages would be used to simultaneously develop the Ford Escort RS Cosworth.
The cars were again predominantly blue, with title sponsorship from Q8, but now featured extra sponsors like Auto Glass and Navarresco, which were displayed in white sections on the bonnet and rear flanks of the car.
British driver Malcolm Wilson returned and was joined by a relatively unknown French driver called François Delecker.
Both drivers were entered on 6 of the European rounds of the championship, with Delecker also entering the Catalonia Rally in Spain.
A 3rd car was shared by Alessandro Fiorio and Win de Fevens, and the single car was made available for Ari Vatanen at Rally Finland. Lecker surprised many with his pace on the season-opening Monte Carlo rally. After a spirited drive, he finished in third place, leading home teammates Wilson and Fiorio, who finished 7th and 10th respectively.
This feat was not to be repeated in Portugal, where all three cars retired after going off the road.
Lecker also failed to finish in Corsica after suffering differential issues, while Wilson finished in 5th place.
The rough and rugged stages of the Acropolis Rally were renowned for breaking cars, and that turned out to be the case for the Sierra RS Cosworth 4x4 as all three cars retired with mechanical ailments.
A single car was entered for Vatanen on his home rally in Finland. He kept the car on the road and won 8 stages on his way to 7th place. The San Remo rally would prove to be more fruitful than the Acropolis, and when the Q8 cars returned, all three cars would finish this rally in the top 10, with Lecker finishing 4th overall ahead of Fiorio in 9th and Wilson in 10th.
1991 was the inaugural year for the Catalonia Rally and was only registered as a round of the Drivers' Championship. 2 cars were entered. One for De Lecker and the other for Jose Maria Bartlett, a pairing that would secure 3rd and 4th positions respectively.
To end the season, Win the Sevens joined Wilson and De Lecker.
It would not be a happy hunting ground for the British drivers on their home rally, the Lombard RAC Rally, both drivers retiring in the forests of Wales on day 2. Their French teammate would go on to finish in 6th place.
A winless season left Ford finishing the Manufacturers' Championship in 4th place with 54 points. There were a number of changes for the 1992 World Rally Championship season at the Gorham-based Ford squad, the most obvious being the new driver lineup.
Francois De Lecker remained at the team, but he was now joined by double world champion Miki Liason, who Ford hoped would have the final ingredients for a championship push.
Q8 no longer sponsored the Sierra RS Cosworth 4x4 cars, which were now painted with a white and blue Mobil 1 livery.
New technical rules were in place, which reduced the turbo restrictor diameter from 40 mm down to 38 mm, and in the background, development work continued on the Ford Escort RS Cosworth.
Ford would follow a similar strategy to 1991 by electing to enter the European gravel and tarmac rounds only.
Liason and De Lecker were paired up on all of the rallies that Ford entered except Catalonia, where De Lecker was joined by Jose Maria Bartlett, and in Great Britain, where Liason was joined by Malcolm Wilson.
De Lecker kicked off this season by winning 5 stages in Monte Carlo on his way to 4th place, 12 minutes and 4 places ahead of his Italian teammate, who would have a better result in Portugal, finishing 2nd behind his former teammate A.K.A.
Engine troubles had denied De Lecker any points in Portugal, but it would hold for both he and Liason on the Acropolis Rally, where the pair finished 5th and 3rd respectively.
The fast, flowing finish stages of the 1000 Lakes Rally allowed Liason to continue his string of good results. He would collect more points by finishing in 5th place. De Lecker, however, seemed to be suffering the bad luck in the team as he finished the rally off the road. These gremlins would strike both De Lecker and Bartlett in Catalonia.
Liason and Wilson would fare much better on the Lombard RAC Rally, with both cars finishing in the top 10.
Ford finished the championship with 94 points and 3rd position and would retire the Sierra RS Cosworth 4x4 as a new car would be ready for 1993. Ford introduced the Escort RS Cosworth. Development of the Escort RS Cosworth continued during the 1994 season, a sequential gearbox and an anti-lag system being introduced, along with new larger 18-inch wheels for tarmac rounds.
This would be the final year at Ford for double champion Mickey Viation. His previous form had not continued and he would not finish higher than third place all season.
His teammate Francois Dulecker demonstrated how the car should be driven by winning the season-opening Monte Carlo rally. He would then miss 4 months of the season after breaking both of his ankles.
A third car was driven on a number of rounds by Bruno Thierry and a number of other drivers including future champion TaBNWNE.
The Finnish driver would only drive the Escort RS Cosworth on his home rally that year, but he would secure a second win for the Ford team. Thierry would finish the season with 2 more points than his more illustrious teammate Viation, but the team's combined performance would leave them third in the championship behind Japanese rivals Toyota and Subaru. Commitments in the Formula 1 and BTCC championships meant that the rally budget at Borum was significantly reduced. As a consequence, Ford were not officially entered into the 1995 season as a manufacturer, the work instead being contracted out to RAS Sport of Belgium. Ford entered the 1996 season at full manufacturer entry, again with the Escort RS Cosworth, but now with backing from Repsol and a new lead driver in the form of Carlos Sainz.
Double champion Sainz had joined the Ford team after losing the battle for the 1995 championship to Colin McRae. He would have a number of new teammates at Ford, starting with Francois Dulecker at Rally Sweden, and then former champion Stig Blomqvist at the Safari Rally in Kenya.
Welsh driver Gwyneth Evans drove the second car in Rally Indonesia. It would be his only appearance before replaced by Bruno Thierry for the rest of the season. Sainz's pace was undeniable, even in the aging Escort RS Cosworth, as he would go on to win the Indonesian rally and finish on the podium on every rally he finished. However, retirements in Kenya, Finland and on his home round in Spain would leave him finishing third in the championship.
Thierry finished on the podium for the final 2 rounds in Italy and Spain, results that would help him to finish 6th in the driver's standings.
1996 would prove to be the swan song year for both the Escort RS Cosworth and the preparation of works Ford cars at Borum, resulting in the team finishing third in the manufacturer's championship. 1997 saw the introduction of the Ford Escort WRC, which was now being run by the Cumbria-based M Sport team, rather than being based at the long-term Ford Motorsport home of Borum.
The team continued to be sponsored by Repsol with a distinctive white and orange livery, and the car featured dramatic changes to the engine, as it was the Escort Group A car's main weak point, and also had several other cosmetic changes including a new front bumper and rear spoiler.
On the driver front, the team continued to be led by double World Rally champion Carlos Sainz, who drove all 14 rounds, winning the Acropolis and Indonesia rallies, also often finishing on the podium.
He would eventually finish third in the championship.
The second seat was initially filled by German driver Armin Schwartz. However, he was replaced after the 6th round in Corsica, following some disappointing results and the fact that his sponsorship money had not arrived.
His understudy was a more than capable A.K.A who completed the season in the second car, finishing on the podium on no less than 6 occasions.
A third car was entered at the Network QRAC rally for Angelo Mettini. Ford finished second in the manufacturer's championship, being sandwiched by champion Subaru and third-placed Mitsubishi. 1998 marked the final season of the Escort WRC, with that year's Rally of Great Britain being its last event, ending the Model Name's 30-year association with factory-backed international rallying.
The team retained the services of four-time world champion Finn, A.K.A and Belgian Bruno Thierry, a championship mainstay and veteran pilot of previous Ford rallying models, including the Escort RS Cosworth.
Carlos Sainz had left the team at the end of the 1997 season and took the Repsol sponsorship with him.
The Escort WRC started the Monte Carlo Rally with a new blue and white Ford livery and the dedication to ex-Ford rally legend Roger Clark, who died earlier in the year.
As events transpired, neither driver would manage to mark the Escort's swan song year with a final victory.
The Escort still proved, frustratingly for the championship hopeful TaBNWNE, persistently ineffective on asphalt rounds of the calendar, loads for which not even Thierry's performances could compensate.
A late injury to the Belgian provided an early season cameo role for 1981 world champion Arie Vatanen, who finished third at the Safari Rally. Behind compatriot TaBNWNE and first-time World Rally victor for Mitsubishi, Richard Burns.
TaBNWNE eventually scored sufficient points and podiums, including second ahead of Thierry in Britain, to finish fourth in the 1998 driver standings. Although, with the announcement of a looming high-profile arrival of Colin McRae to the team for the following year, this success did not deter the Finn from deciding to leave the M-Sport outfit. Both he and Thierry proceeding to sign Subaru contracts for 1999.
The Ford and M-Sport built Ford Focus WRC replaced the Escort WRC for 1999.
It debuted on the Monte Carlo Rally in January, with Colin McRae and Simon G. Joseph driving the two Martini Racing liveried works machines.
It set several fastest stage times and McRae finished a provisional third place on the stages, only to be disqualified later due to an illegal water pump. McRae gave the Focus its first win 2 events later at the Safari Rally in Kenya, finishing over 15 minutes ahead of the second-placed Toyota Corolla WRC of Didier Auriol.
Although McRae then immediately followed up this success with a victory at the next round in Portugal, the Scots' title chances faded amid reliability problems, with a new car and a series of costly shunts.
McRae finished 6th in the driver's standings. During this debut season, many drivers drove the second Focus of the team, Francis Simon G. Joseph for some tarmac events, 2003 World Rally champion Petter Solberg of Norway, who replaced Radstrom in the Safari Rally, and Thomas Radstrom of Sweden on loose surface grounds, except Safari, who was replaced by Petter Solberg. His former role at Toyota now redundant after his former team's withdrawal as manufacturers champions at the end of the 1999 season. Double world champion Spaniard Carlos Sainz chose to return to his 1997 team for the 2000 season, joining the incumbent Colin McRae.
Both men drove the Focus WRC at every event of the season.
They finished 3rd and 4th respectively in the Drivers' Championship, albeit only managing to bring Ford second place in the manufacturer's title race behind Puget.
Once again, pit park driver Piero Liatti was called upon to help improve Ford's points returns on asphalt.
McRae and Sainz were joined for the 2001 season by a regular third driver in the returning Ford favorite of the early to mid-1990s, Frenchman François Delecker.
McRae's season oscillated between a protracted pointless run on the season's first few rounds, including retirement on the season opening Monte Carlo rally while leading the event from TaBNWNE, and a run of 3 consecutive victories on the Argentine, Cypriot and Greek events, the latter placing him as joint leader of the championship, with McKinnon midway through the season.
Leading the points standings outright upon entering his final home round. However, McRae led in the initial stages only to crash out of the event, allowing a consistently point-scoring Richard Burns to sneak past him for the title.
Ford also lost their opportunity for the manufacturer's title on this event, as rivals Puget secured a decisive 1-2 finish with Marcus Gronholm and Ari Raventera.
Sainz, meanwhile, endured a winless but not wholly uncompetitive season, even remaining an outsider for the title entering the final event.
A crash of his own put paid to such ambitions, with the Spaniard slumping to 6th place in the points standings with 33 points.
McRae and Sainz regrouped for both drivers' final seasons, with Ford in 2002.
Simultaneously, youngster Marco Martin replaced Delector as the team's third driver, having found himself crowded out by the presence of Richard Burns and Peter Solberg at former team Subaru.
Sainz in 3rd place in the championship beat his Scottish teammates 4th place in the standings.
His only victory of the year came on that year's Rally Argentina, which he inherited after the unlikely exclusion of both of the initially 1-2 finishing dominant works Pugets of Marcus Gronholm and Englishman Burns.
McRae began his own season with 4th place on the Rally Monte Carlo, but he suffered an injury to his hand when he crashed out on the Tour de Course, which left him hampered and struggling to a single point scoring finish on the following tarmac round in Spain.
Injury worries for Sainz, meanwhile, came not from himself, but in the form of longtime co-driver Luis Moya, who was forced to end his unbroken year-on-year chain of appearances with his compatriot in order to recuperate, with Mark Marty stepping in for the double world champions home rally.
Intrusive spectator parking on the event blinded Sainz, causing him to eventually crash out.
With the Fords having initially dominated the stage times on the first rough gravel event of the year in Cyprus, particularly through McRae, Martin and Francois Duval. Successive retirements left McRae as the sole occupier of the lead for the Blue Oval, which he lost after a number of unfortunate shunts, which eventually left himself holding on to a mere 6th place overall, and the 2 factory Pugets as 1-2 finishers on this event.
After Sainz's perhaps fortuitous Argentinian win, McRae resumed his role as rally winner on the Acropolis and Safari rallies.
The first success came despite initially being unexpectedly led on the stages by an imperious Martin, while the latter achieved on the landmark occasion of the 50th running of the fabled endurance event, and its last at World Rally Championship level, in retrospect, proved to be the last career victory for McRae and British navigator Nicky Grist, ironically on the day on which the Scot became the first World Championship driver to reach the quarter-century mark of individual WRC wins, and came to stand alone as the most successful driver in the history of the World Rally Championship.
In September 2002, Ford announced they would not be renewing McRae's contract, given his desire for a £5 million contract and the cost of developing the new 2003 car.
Both McRae and Sainz joined the then less seasoned Sebastian Loeb at new championship full-timers, Citroën.
In the absence of the departed McRae and Sainz, Ford opted to promote their younger supporting drivers, Estonian Marco Martin and Belgian Francois Duval, to their top 2 seats.
A comparatively thorough redesign of the Focus, debuted at the 2003 Rally New Zealand, where Martin in particular proved immediately competitive, leading only to later be forced into retirement with engine problems.
The team's new leader did score his first of 5 career rally victories on that year's Acropolis Rally, however, notwithstanding a dramatic mid-stage moment for him and navigator Michael Park. When the car's bomb unexpectedly flew up, as well as becoming only the third non-Scandinavian victor of the Rally Finland, formerly the 1000 Lakes Rally. The junior Duval, meanwhile, as had been publicly predicted by team boss Malcolm Wilson, secured a podium finish on this year's Tour de Course, having scored his first ever podium finish earlier in the year in Turkey. The two drivers finished the season in 4th and 9th places respectively in the drivers' standings. Martin and Duval again drove the two works Fords in 2004.
Martin managed to win the French, Spanish and Mexican rallies, giving him 3rd place in the overall championship.
Both drivers left at the end of the season to join Peugeot, Martin, and Citroën, Duval. The 2005 season saw Ford take on two relatively inexperienced drivers, Finn Tony Gardemeister and Czech Roman Cresta.
Gardemeister achieved podiums at the Monte Carlo Rally, Rally Sweden, Acropolis Rally, and the Tour de Course.
Cresta's best individual rally result was 6th, which he achieved on 5 events.
The duo respectively finished in 4th and 8th places in the Drivers' Championship standings.
The team also successfully introduced its 2006 car, the Ford Focus RSWRC06 at the final rally of the year in Australia, where despite a few teething troubles, it was immediately quick as Gardemeister and Cresta both achieved the fastest stage time during the rally. The teams in France for the 2006 season are a new look, all-finished team of 2000 and 2002 champion Marcus Gronholm, co-driven by Timo Raikkonen and the youngster Mikko Hirvonen, who renewed his link with the M-Sport Run team for the first time since 2003, co-driven by Jarmo Lehtinen.
Gronholm joined the team from Peugeot, with whom, as planned, he ended his association after the joint withdrawal from the sport of both PSA Group Marquez.
He won his first 2 events for the team on the Monte Carlo Rally and the Swedish Rally, but was closely shadowed on both of them by the 2-time champion and now driver with semi-works Chronos Citroën, Sebastian Loeb, who was soon to assert himself sufficiently in order to overtake the Finn in the points standings.
Despite further victories, including Greece and Finland, Gronholm never regained the championship led from the Frenchman and with the exception of Hirvonen in Australia. The two proved the only 2 drivers worthy of individual rally victories all season.
Although with 4 rounds remaining in a 34-point lead, Loeb's injury from a mountain biking accident shortly after the Cyprus Rally appeared to offer Gronholm a chance to close the deficit. The Finn's title challenge was finally mathematically ended with a crash on the penultimate round in Australia. His team, however, were to benefit from Loeb's absence against a now weakened Chronos Citroën left to depend on their 2 inexperienced Spaniards, Xavier Pons and Daniel Sordo. Although the team initially called upon Colin McRae to substitute for Loeb on their first event without him in Turkey.
Ford, already gaining on the points lead due to the combined proficiency on gravel of their 2 senior drivers, soon reclaimed the championship lead they were never to lose, achieving its greatest success in winning the manufacturer's title, the first such win for Ford since 1979.
The team's primary entrants for 2007 were unchanged from 2006.
After watching his opponent of the previous year, TaBNWNE returned to winning ways on the official return of the 2003-2005 Manufacturers' Championship winning Factory Citroën team on the season's curtain raiser in Monte Carlo. Gronholm followed up his own third place by winning for the first time that season in Sweden in February, and led his opponent, now driving a newly homologated Citroën C4 WRC, in the driver's standings over the championship's post-Rally Finland summer break, an event also incidentally won by Gronholm for a record-beating 7th time, to further extend his points lead.
Unfortunately for the Drivers' Championship ambitions of both the Blue Oval concern and Gronholm, however, having announced his impending retirement from WRC competition at the end of the season, the elder Finn was to suffer an early exit on Rally Japan.
Gronholm then crashed his Focus, knocking himself briefly unconscious on the tarmac stages of the inaugural Rally Ireland and penultimate round of the year.
Combined with adversary low winning, this meant Gronholm would surrender his championship lead, leaving him with an almost impossible points deficit to overhaul at the season-ending Wales Rally GP.
It culminated in the Frenchman settling for a safe third on the rally, to the Finn's second, triumphing in the second long points duel between the pair in consecutive years.
Ford, however, aided by supporting teammate Hirvanen's continued superiority on loose surface events over his Citroën counterpart Daniel Sordo, sealed a successful defense of the Constructors' Championship.
Meanwhile, Hirvanen, for his part, in addition to ending the season in style by topping the timesheets after the 3-stage competition in Wales, had also earlier taken his second and third career World Rally victories in Norway and Japan.
At the halfway stage of the 2007 World Rally Championship, a joint venture between BP Ford and the Abu Dhabi Tourism Board was announced to bring a third official Ford Focus RS World Rally car to the team's campaign.
A.K.A and co-driver Nicky Beach contested the Nest Oil Rally Finland, ADAC Rally Deutschland, Rally RACC Catalunya Costa Dorada and Rally Ireland.
For their work in the 2007 season, BP Ford and M-Sport received the Rally Business of the Year award from the Motorsport Industry Association. Mikko Hirvanen and co-driver Jarmo Lehtinen resumed the implicit role within the team of the Cumbria Outfit's leading crew for the 2008 season, after Marcus Gronholm and co-driver Timo Raikkonen elected to retire following the 2007 season. With a more experienced Finn later to be found dabbling for Ford in rallycross and maintaining his links with a BP Ford WRT team in an ambassadorial role.
Hirvanen was joined in the new look M-Sport lineup by another fellow Finnish driver, Jari-Matti Latvala, who stepped into the vacant berth from his former spot at the satellite Stoppard Ford team.
Kalle Alcassini returned with a program of 10 events on the 2008 WRC calendar aboard a third car.
His co-driver, Nicky Beach, was replaced by Michael Orr, former co-driver to Matthew Wilson.
The season got off to a promising start for both Finnish drivers, with Hirvanen taking second to the seemingly omnipresent Loeb on the Monte Carlo Rally in January. The 4-lap Latvala shattered Henry Toivonin's long-standing record as youngest World Rally Championship qualifying event winner by outpacing Hirvanen to victory on the following Rally Sweden.
Hirvanen collected his first win of the year on the Jordan Rally and led Latvala in an astutely tactically judged Ford 1-2 on Rally Turkey to assert a slender points lead over Citroën's Loeb heading into both Finn's home round of the championship in August.
Unfortunately for Ford, however, neither Irvine nor Latvala were able to defeat Loeb, with a now dominant Frenchman proceeding to record his 8th and 9th victories of the season on the New Zealand, Spanish and Corsican rallies.
For the latter two asphalt rounds, team boss Malcolm Wilson drafted in place of Latvala, Casey Belgian and one-time full-time pilot for the Ford team, Francois Duval. In order to maximize the team's points haul on a surface traditionally favorable to their French rivals.
Although Irvine did return to winning form to head a Ford 1-2 with Latvala in Japan, it was at the same event where Loeb finished third to finally clinch the driver's title. Although the team did close into within 11 points of Citroën in the manufacturer's title race, with a possible total of 18 still available as the season-ending Wales Rally GP loomed in December. Irvine, Latvala and Al-Qasimi were retained in the team.
Rival team Citroën got their season off to a good start, Sebastian Loeb winning all of the first 5 rallies.
After finishing third in Ireland, Irvine scored 4 consecutive second-place finishes, but retired in Argentina with an engine problem.
The team won their first rally of the season in Italy, Latvala beating Irvine.
Irvine then took 4 consecutive victories, giving him a 5-point lead over Loeb, with 2 rounds to go.
Irvine finished third in Spain and took a 1-point championship lead to the finale in Great Britain.
However, Loeb beat him to the victory in Britain, winning the championship.
Irvine finished second in the standings, with Latvala fourth.
Ford finished second in the manufacturer's championship behind Citroën. Irvine, Latvala and Al-Qasimi were retained again in the team for 2010.
The team made a strong start, Irvine winning in Sweden with Latvala in third.
However, the Fords struggled at the next round in Mexico, Irvine and Latvala only managing 4th and 5th respectively as Citroën filled the podium.
Irvine went off the road on the opening day of the Jordan Rally, but Latvala was fighting for victory.
Both teams used tactics to determine the road order, Loeb eventually winning for Citroën.
Irvine finished third in Turkey, while Latvala beat Sebastian Ogier to win in New Zealand after Loeb made errors and Irvine struggled for pace.
Citroën filled the podium again in Portugal, Irvine leading Ford in 4th. A change in the technical rules for the 2011 season meant that the Focus RSWRC had been replaced by the Fiesta RSWRC. The Fiesta name had not used by Ford for a rally car since the 1979 season, where Roger Clark and Ari Vatanen were entered for the Monte Carlo Rally.
The new car retained the Abu Dhabi sponsorship that it had sported with the Focus, along with a driver lineup of Nico Irvine, Jari Medi Latvala and Calvin Al-Qasimi.
The main change from the new technical rules centered on the engine displacement, it being reduced from 2,000 cubic centimeters turbo to 1,600 cubic centimeters turbo. This reflected the changes being introduced to road cars at the same time. The season started well, with Irvine winning the Swedish Rally and Latvala finishing third, but Ford would have to wait until round 10 in Australia for the Fiesta to win again.
Despite a promising start, the Fiesta would only win 3 rallies during the season, the third victory being with Latvala in the legendary Forests of Wales Rally GP.
Irvine and Latvala would each achieve 6 additional podium finishes, allowing them to finish 2nd and 4th in the Drivers' Championships respectively.
Ford finished second in the Manufacturers' Championship, 27 points behind eventual winner Citroën.
Ford's participation in the World Rally Championship prior to the start of the 2012 season was in doubt due to the Great Recession, but an announcement at the 11th hour was enough to secure their entry.
The Abu Dhabi sponsorship deal had finished at the end of the 2011 season, and the Fiesta RSWRC now featured a predominantly Ford blue and white livery.
Jari Latvala remained in the Ford stable and was now joined by 2003 champion Petter Solberg, who replaced the Citroën-bound Mikko Hirvonen. The season could have started very well for Ford. Latvala was leading the Monte Carlo rally with raw pace until he crashed out, handing victory to Loeb.
Latvala tried to make up for this error by winning the next round in Sweden, but he and Ford would not win again until the 10th round at Wales Rally GP.
Solberg showed reasonable pace at the start of the season, adapting to a new car but in the end would never finish higher than third position.
Johnny Sordo also made an appearance for the Ford team at Rally Argentina, replacing Latvala, who had been injured during training. He showed good pace, but retired on the final leg.
Latvala ended the season in third place, 116 points behind Loeb.
Solberg finished in 5th place behind his younger compatriot, Matt Zosberg.
Ford again finished second behind Citroën in the Manufacturers' Championship, another disappointing result for the Blue Oval brand.
At the end of the 2012 season, Ford announced that it would be ending its sponsorship of the Ford World Rally team, thus ending a 17-year link with the M Sports squad.
On Monday, 26 November 2012, M Sport announced that sponsorship had been secured from the state of Qatar and that Matt Zosberg and Nasser Al-Attiyah would be driving for the 2013 season.
On Saturday, 15 December 2012, M Sport also announced that Evgeny Novikov and Thierry Neuville would be joining the Qatar M Sport World Rally team.
Although the team will be rallying with a Ford Fiesta RSWRC and may receive technical support from the Ford Motor Company, they will not be classed as the Ford World Rally team. Ford has competed in rallycross with its Ford Fiesta and Ford Focus.
Tanner Faust won the Global Rallycross Championship in 2011 and 2012 and was runner-up in the FIA European Rallycross Championship in 2011 and 2012.
Tuomas Heikkinen won the Global Rallycross Championship title in 2013 and Joni Women won it in 2014.
Other notable Ford drivers include Marcus Gronholm, Ken Block, and Brian Deegan.
Ford sports cars have been visible in the world of sports car racing since 1964.
Most notably, the Ford GT40 won the 24 Hours of Le Mans 4 times in 1966, 1967, 1968, and 1969. And is the only American car to ever win overall at this prestigious event.
Ford also won 4 titles at the World Sports Car Championship with a GT40.
Swiss team Matec GT Racing, in collaboration with Ford Racing, opened a new chapter with a Ford GT winning the team's title in the 2008 FIA GT3 European Championship.
The Ford GT has been campaigned in various racing venues.
These included
a highly modified GT was raced in 2006 and 2007 in Super GT's GT300 class in Japan, powered by a 3.5-liter Ford Zeta car engine, produced by Cosworth in the mid-1990s for Formula One.
Matec Concepts, from Switzerland entered 3 Ford GTs, modified to GT3 class specifications in the FIA GT3 European Championship.
Matec won the team's title in the 2008 championship. Atlanta-based Robertson Racing entered a door-and-built Ford GTR in the American Le Mans Series GT class, formerly GT2.
The team made its first 24 hours of Le Mans appearance in 2011, scoring 3rd position overall in the GTEAM class. Black Swan Racing entered a Falcon Tires sponsored Ford GTR in the GT2 class in the American Le Mans Series during the 2008 season.
And Ford Chip Ganassi Racing formerly ran 4 factory-supported LM Spec Ford GT LM GTE Pro Race cars.
2 in the FIA World Endurance Championship under the LM GTE Pro class during the 2016, 2017, and 2018-19 seasons, and 2 in the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship in the GT-LM class during the 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019 seasons.
At the end of the 2019 season, Ganassi announced that it would end their factory race program with Ford after 4 years. The Ford GT GT1 is a racing version of the Ford GT, developed by Matec Concepts to comply with FIA GT1 rules.
The official race debut of the Ford GT1 coincided with the kickoff of the 2009 FIA GT Championship season in Silverstone.
For the 2010 FIA GT1 World Championship season, 4 cars were built and fielded by 2 teams, Matec Competition and Mark VDS Racing Team.
3 cars competed in the 2010 24 Hours of Le Mans race with 2. The number 70 car run by the Mark VDS Racing Team and the number 61 car run by Matec Concepts, retiring early on.
The 3rd car retired later in the race.
For the 2011 FIA GT1 World Championship season, Matec left the series, which left Mark VDS running the 4 cars during the season. 2 under the Mark VDS Racing Team name and the other 2 cars under the name of Belgian Racing.
The Ford GT was also homologated for the FIA GT3 rules by Matec Concepts.
The Ford GT GT3 was involved in numerous championships including the FIA GT3 European Championship, FIA GT1 World Championship, Blankton Endurance Series, and others.
The GT3 version is slower than the GT1 version, rated at around 500 horsepower, 373 kilowatts, instead of 600 horsepower, 447 kilowatts, and features different bodywork. On 12 June 2015, at Le Mans, it was announced that Ford will return to the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 2016 with a factory-supported 4-car effort operating at Ford Chip Ganassi Racing with the LM Spec Ford GT LM GTE Pro.
The Ford Chip Ganassi Racing cars campaigned in both the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship and the FIA World Endurance Championship.
The car debuted at the 2016 24 Hours of Daytona on January 30 to 31, finishing 7th and 9th in class. On June 19, 2016, the number 68 Ford GT Ford Chip Ganassi Racing finished first at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in the LM GTE Pro class. The victory marked 50 years after Ford won the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1966, where they came first, second, and third with a GT40.
In the 2016 6 Hours of Fuji and the 6 Hours of Shanghai, both the Ford GT finished 1-2 at both races, the number 67 winning both and the number 66 coming second in both.
In the opening WEC race at Silverstone, the number 67 Ford GT took victory.
2 races later, on June 19, 2017, the number 67 Ford GT Ford Chip Ganassi Racing finished runner-up at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. In the LMGTE Pro class, this time 50 years after the second Le Mans race win in 1967.
The Ford Mustang has arguably been Ford's most successful sports car.
Jerry Titus won the 1965 SCCA Pro D National Championship with a Mustang, and the model went on to earn Ford the SCCA Trans Am Championship title in both 1966 and 1967.
Ford won the Trans Am Championship again in 1970 with Parnelli Jones and George Palmer driving Boss 302 Mustangs for Budmore Engineering.
Ford took the 1985 and 1986 IMSA GTO Championship with Mustangs driven by John Jones and Scott Pruitt before returning to Trans Am glory with a championship in 1989 with Dorsey Schroeder.
Ford dominated Trans Am in the 1990s, with Tommy Kendall winning championships in 1993, 1995, 1996, and 1997, with Paul Gentilozzi adding yet another title in 1999.
In 2005, the Ford Mustang FR500C took the championship in the Rolex Kony Challenge Series in its first year on the circuit.
In 2007, Ford added a victory in the GT4 European Championship.
2008 was the first year of the Mustang Challenge for the Miller Cup, a series that pits a full field of identical factory-built Ford Mustang race cars against each other.
Also, in 2008, Ford won the Manufacturers' Championship in the Kony Challenge Series, and Hypersport drivers Joe Foster and Steve Maxwell won the driver's title in a Mustang GT. Ford and Michelin teamed up to provide custom-engineered tires for the Ford Performance vehicle lineup.
Ford Performance Director Dave Pericek said that confidence extends from our upcoming racing effort at Le Mans in 2016 with the all-new Ford GT to the Ford Performance vehicle lineup, including the Shelby GT350 and F-150 Raptor.
And you got Trevor! And you got Trevor! And you got Trevor!
The Mustang made its first public appearance on a racetrack as pace car for the 1964 Indianapolis 500. The same year, Mustangs won first and second in class at the Tour de France International Rally. In 1969, modified versions of the 428 Mach 1, Boss 429 and Boss 302 took 295 United States Auto Club certified records at Bonneville Salt Flats.
The outing included a 24-hour run on a 10-mile, 16 kilometers course at an average speed of 157 miles per hour, 253 kilometers per hour.
Drivers were Mickey Thompson, Danny Bongace, Ray Brock, and Bob Autumn. The car's American competition debut, also in 1964, was in drag racing, where private individuals and dealer-sponsored teams campaigned Mustangs, powered by 427 cubic inches, 7.0 liters, V8s. In late 1964, Ford contracted Holman and Moody to prepare 10 427-powered Mustangs to contest the National Hot Rod Association's NHRA A/Factory Experimental Class in the 1965 drag racing season.
5 of these special Mustangs made their competition debut at the 1965 NHRA Winter Nationals, where they qualified in the factory stock eliminator class.
The car, driven by Bill Lawton, won the class. A decade later, Bob Gooden won the Mustang's first NHRA Pro Stock title. Ricky Smith's Motorcraft Mustang won the International Hot Rod Association Pro Stock World Championship. In 2002, John Force broke his own NHRA drag racing record by winning his 12th national championship in his Ford Mustang Funny car. Force beat that record again in 2006, becoming the first ever 14-time champion driving a Mustang. Early Mustangs also proved successful in road racing.
The GT350R, the race version of the Shelby GT350, won 5 of the Sports Car Club of America's SCCA 6 divisions in 1965.
Drivers were Jerry Titus, Bob Johnson, and Mark Donahue, and Titus won the SCCA Deep Reduction National Championship.
The GT350s won the Deep Reduction title again in 1966 and 1967.
They also won the 1966 Manufacturers' Championship in the inaugural SCCA Trans Am Series and repeated the win the following year. In 1970, Mustang won the SCCA Series Manufacturers' Championship again, with Parnelli Jones and George Palmer driving for car owner/builder Bud Moore and crew chief Lanky Fauci.
Jones won the unofficial driver's title.
In 1975, Ron Smalldone's Mustang became the first ever American car to win the Showroom Stock National Championship in SCCA road racing. Mustangs competed in the IMSA GTO class, with wins in 1984 and 1985.
In 1985, John Jones won the 1985 GTO Drivers' Championship, Wally Dallenbach Jr. John Jones and Doc Bundy won the GTO class at the Daytona 24 Hours, and Ford won its first Manufacturers' Championship in road racing since 1970.
3 class wins went to Lynn St. James, the first woman to win in the series. 1986 brought 8 more GTO wins and another manufacturer's title.
Scott Pruitt won the Drivers' Championship.
The GT Endurance Championship also went to Ford. In 1987, Saleen Autosport Mustangs, driven by Steve Saleen and Rick Titus, won the SCCA Sport Endurance SSGT Championship and an International Motorsports Association IMSA. Racing a Mustang again won the GTO class in the Daytona 24 Hours.
In 1989, the Mustang won Ford its first Trans Am Manufacturers' title since 1970, with Dorsey Schroeder winning the Drivers' Championship.
In 1997, Tommy Kendall's Roush prepared Mustang won a record 11 consecutive races in Trans Am to secure its third straight Drivers' Championship. Mustangs compete in the SCCA World Challenge, with Brandon Davis winning the 2009 GT Drivers' Championship.
Mustangs competed in the now defunct Random Road Racing Ford Racing Mustang Challenge for the Miller Cup Series.
Ford won championships in the Random Road Racing Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge for the 2005, 2008, and 2009 seasons, with a Mustang FR500C and GT models.
In 2004, Ford Racing retained Multimatic Motorsports to design, engineer, build and race the Mustang FR500C turnkey race car.
In 2005, Scott Maxwell and David Entringham took the driver's title.
In 2010, the next generation Mustang race car was known as the Boss 302R.
It took its maiden victory at Barber Motorsports Park in early 2011 with drivers Scott Maxwell and Joe Foster. In 2012, Jack Roush Jr. and Bully Johnson won the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge race at the Daytona International Speedway opening race of the 50th anniversary Rolex 24 at Daytona weekend in the Mustang Boss 302R. In 2016, Multimatic Motorsports won the INSA SCC Drivers and Manufacturers titles with the S550 based Shelby GT 350 RC, driven by Scott Maxwell and Bully Johnson. On July 27, 2023, Ford announced that the 7th generation Mustang would have its own spec racing series, called Mustang Challenge, sanctioned by the INSA. Dick Trickle won 67 short-track oval feature races in 1972, a U.S. national record for wins in a single season. In 2010, the Ford Mustang became Ford's car of tomorrow for the NASCAR Nationwide Series, with full-time racing of the Mustang beginning in 2011.
Whoa!
This opened a new chapter in both the Mustang's history and Ford's history.
NASCAR insiders expected to see Mustang racing in NASCAR Sprint Cup by 2014, the model's 50th anniversary.
The NASCAR vehicles are not based on production models but are a silhouette racing car with decals that give them a superficial resemblance to road cars.
Carl Edwards won the first ever race with a NASCAR Prep Mustang on April 8, 2011 at the Texas Motor Speedway. Ford Mustangs have also raced in the NASCAR Xfinity Series since 2010. Ford Mustangs are driven in the NASCAR Wheel and Euro Series also. Ford Mustangs have been track raced in the NASCAR Cup Series since 2019, replacing the discontinued Ford Fusion. Mustangs have competed at the Formula Drift and D1 Grand Prix Series, most notably by American driver Von Gittin Jr. Brazilian driver Diego Hida won the Netflix Hyperdrive Series in 2019 in the 2006 Ford Mustang V8. Ford Mustangs compete in the FIA GT3 European Championship and compete in the GT4 European Cup and other sports car races such as the 24 Hours of Spa.
The Mark VDS racing team was developing the GT3 spec Mustang since 2010.
The Ford Mustang was announced as a replacement for the Ford Falcon FGX in the 2019 Supercars Championship, which is being contested in Australia and New Zealand.
The Mustang placed first in the first race of the year, with Scott McLaughlin winning for DJR Team Penske.
Ford has campaigned touring cars such as the Mustang, Focus, Falcon, and Contour/Mondeo and the Sierra Cosworth in many different series throughout the years.
Notably, Mondeo drivers finished 1, 2, and 3 in the 2000 British Touring Car Championship, and Falcon drivers placed 1, 2, and 3 in the 2005 V8 Supercar Championship Series.
In drag racing, John Force racing drivers John Force, Tony Pesverden, and Robert Hyde have piloted Ford Mustang funny cars to several NHRA titles in recent seasons.
Teammates Tim Wilkerson and Bob Tascafree also drive Mustangs in Funny Car.
Ford has branched out into drifting with the introduction of the new model Mustang.
Most noticeable is the turquoise and blue Falcon Tires Mustang, driven by Von Gittin Jr. that produces 750 horsepower, 560 kilowatts. We will continue about Ford in final part. To be continued.